Alright, what's up everybody? It's Lids, and just checking here, just making sure that we are working as intended, as this is actually, if everything is going according to plan, our first YouTube live stream ever. So, well, hopefully we have got it working properly in that case, and admittedly, may or may not have spent, may not have gotten a much later start to this stream than intended. You know, saw the Gwent patch notes come out earlier today, and thought that, you know, I'd just take a quick note of them and carry on. But, no. Decided that, I was gonna make an unexpected or unplanned video for it, which ended up taking about 6 or 7 hours, and then took about another hour to figure out how to get this YouTube streaming stuff to work. So hopefully everything is all working according to plan here, but that's why we're starting significantly later, and we have a lot of stuff that I originally planned to do today, but admittedly, I have no idea how much we will actually be able to fit in, because it's awfully late. But anyways, what's up everybody? It's Lids, and well, we are today going to celebrate hitting 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, and so for that reason, it felt like, why not take a look back, take a trip down memory lane, and start off by playing the very first game that we ever played on YouTube, and then take it one game at a time, all the way up to present day, and see how we got here, because of course, couldn't have done it without you guys. Thank you so much for supporting us with every single game that we played, and it all started on, I think it was December of 2019 with Pyre. And oh man, looking back, I remember we did the Pyre campaign, which was my first time ever playing it before. It was a game that I'd been eyeing for a while, but it is an RPG visual novel with a lot of sports-like elements to the gameplay, and so I didn't really know what to expect going in, but it was a game developed by one of my favorite developers ever, an indie developer, Supergiant Games, which nowadays people are probably more familiar with for having made Hades, but I'd never played it at the time, and I thought that why not give Pyre a shot, and now it has become, or was, the first ever game that we played on YouTube, and also a game that nowadays we are still playing every week, multiplayer style, and it's been a lot of fun. So, I think we have a lot of stuff that we are looking to do today, because, as I said, the plan is to try to hit as many of the games that we have played over the course of our YouTube time, and, well, that means we're gonna have to make them probably pretty quick. So, I have compiled an agenda here, and perhaps a rather ambitious agenda that we, as I just said, may not actually have time to address and play all these things, but plan would be, in order, for us to do Pyre, the first game we ever played on YouTube, Hades, the second game, Witcher. Now, we, of course, did Witcher 1 and 2 on YouTube, and then Witcher 3 we actually did initially on Twitch, and then uploaded the VODs onto YouTube. I can't realistically fit in Witcher 1, 2, and 3 all in one sitting here, especially because that is a difficult game to slice off into little bite-sized chunks, and so for that reason, actually planning to go with the Witcher 2 Arena, which is actually a game that we did on YouTube, and so that feels like that is perhaps a way to sort of do, it's going to be representative of Witcher 1, 2, and 3. Then Gwent, of course, has in many ways become one of, if not the biggest game that we've played since then, so I imagine that that is what perhaps most of you are most familiar with, but we'll do a little bit of that. Then Mardek, we did after that. Mass Effect 3, which we've done, actually, Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3 Legendary Edition, but Mass Effect 3 multiplayer is, again, kind of like the case with Witcher 2 Arena. I think the easiest way to get a little bite-sized chunk of what would otherwise be a humongous RPG game that is multiple hundreds of hours really to do. And then Thronebreaker after that. That one I have some reservations about, just because that is something that we very much cannot really just take a little bite-sized chunk out of. It is something that we would need to pick up right where we left off, and we would need to progress with the story for it. And so that one we might deliberately skip and just leave that for our next Thronebreaker video independent of this stream, because everything else, for the most part, are things that we have either already finished or are things that we can go into and not have to worry about, you know, are we going to change the current state of affairs with it for our next video. So then Bastion and Transistor, other games created by Supergiant Games, the same people who did Pyre and Hades, also games that we played recently on YouTube, and then most recently, Rogue Mage, of course, the new Gwent single-player roguelike game. So that is the list of things that we are planning to play here, and of course, as I said, it's a long list, but we'll see if we can get just a little bit of each of them, and basically, for those of you who maybe you joined the channel and you thought, okay, well, this is the specific one that I'm most interested in, well, we can take a chance to take a look at, well, these are all the things that got us here, and perhaps you find that there's a game or two that you say, you know what, that looks like a lot of fun, and, well, in that case, I can happily say that, well, we have several videos about all of these games, so there is plenty for you to look into in that case, but that is all just an aside, because, well, we got to get back into the game. So, for our first game, it is Pyre. As I said, the first game that we ever played on this channel. We will not do the campaign, just because the campaign is, similarly, a pretty big experience in and of itself. So, what we'll do instead is go into Versus mode here, which is the game mode in which we can just play against either a CPU or play against another person, and that is what we've been doing most recently. But of course, originally, when we were playing this game, we were playing against, doing the campaign. But what we'll do here is we will basically just set up a team here. We'll be player 1 going against player 2. As I said, it is basically an RPG game in which we are going to be playing as a group of characters. And our objective is to control the orb, or the ball, and take it and deliver it to our opponent's fire, or Pyre.
You stand upon the spring of Jomia. At stake here.
Lid's playing against himself? What? Oh wait, I meant to set up as a CPU. Did I not set it up as a CPU? I might not have. But how's it going, Rumi? How are you?
Stand ready. Dissidents, stand prepared.
Let's see. We're about to fight. Hold on. Let me just double check. Did I accidentally not set? Yeah, I did not set this against the CPU. Hold on. We are looking for a CPU here. I was kind of hoping make the CPU. Sure, we'll be player 2. I wanted to be this team because that's my team of choice. But anyways, there we go. Now we will be going against the CPU and not playing against ourselves. I suppose that probably makes a little more sense.
Hear me, exiles. Welcome to the fall of Solium. Here you shall be tested by your adversary. Prevail and earn the favor of the scribe.
Yeah, I was just casually gonna play as both players simultaneously.
Stand ready.
Just gonna break out some new expert strats.
Stand prepared.
Alright, but for those of you who are unfamiliar with this game, Pyre, the idea is that, let's see, are we still selecting for the CPU? I think we are. Basically, there are going to be 2 teams here. Each team has 3 players on it. Here we're going to be selecting said players. The goal of the game is to control the orb, or the ball, in the middle, and once you control it, you then walk it over to your opponent's side, your opponent's fire, or Pyre, the name of the game, and if you either get it all the way in or throw the orb into that fire, then you deal damage to your opponent. Once your opponent drops from 100 Pyre life to 0 Pyre life, they are defeated. So, you want to defeat your opponent before they can defeat you. And naturally, every player has its own set of skills and also items that we can use to customize how we'd like to set them up. But this, in this case, is going to be the CPU that we're setting up here, so why don't we just give them a pretty stock standard set, I suppose. I suppose we can do that. And so, I won't talk too much about the specifics of each character and what we're doing to build these characters, because that is, well, something we talk a whole lot about when we are doing this game nowadays, which again, we are doing every week, actually multiplayer for this stuff, and we're doing it so that, well, players are choosing their own teams, or actually chat is choosing the teams for them, and that has led to some creative team compositions. And so if you're interested in learning the finer details of how this game works and what the exact skills that I'm selecting here do, then I would say, well, don't hesitate to stop by. We are playing this game every Sunday, and we're actually doing so on Twitch. Lids Vids on Twitch as well. But what I'm going to do here, I'll talk a little bit more about my team, is I'm going to use a little speedy guy, Sir Gilman. And so if we look at our 4 stats here, we have Glory, which is how much damage we do when we score. We have Quickness, which is, of course, how fast he is. Presence, which is how big his aura is, which is basically the defensive system that we have, where we have this circle, or in this case, in some characters, it actually is, rather than a circle around them, it is a sort of like trail that they leave behind them. And if you can get your opponents to go into this aura, then you can banish them, or, you know, you can kind of think of it almost like hockey, or I oftentimes think of it as hockey, or I guess football, blocking or checking so that your opponent is temporarily out of commission. So basically it's our way of defending. So presence is what dictates how big of an aura we have for that, and then hope is when they do get banished, which is basically the in-game terminology for this time in which you are unavailable because you have been checked or blocked or what have you. That's how quickly you come back, is dictated by how much hope you have. So in this case, I'm going to take a bunch of these worm characters, and their thing is that they are particularly quick. And so that is going to be the name of the game for us. Oh, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for the kind words, and thank you so much for the support. Yeah, so that was, you know, that was kind of the idea of today, is we're just getting started. I know we've started a little bit later than intended, but hoping to take a look at all the things that we played here along the way to get to 1,000 subscribers, and start off with where we started off, and that is initially with Pyre. And we did the campaign first, but we actually are continuing to play this game even now, but in the multiplayer format. And so we'll start here, and then we'll hopefully have enough time to at least get through some of the other games that we have played as well. And eventually we'll get to Gwent, we'll get to other Gwent-related games and The Witcher and what have you, and just do little bits and pieces of all those things to get a taste for, hey, this is what we did. And in some cases, you know, it might be something that we played recently, which is sort of, kind of, the case here. But in other cases, might be games that it's been a really long time since we last played them, and in some cases might be games that people just aren't familiar with. And so it might be a little bit of a way to introduce other people to, hey, you know, this is what this game is all about. These are some of the things that we currently do or used to do that you might not be as familiar with, and maybe you think they're a lot of fun, and so it's a chance for you to realize, hey, I'd like to take another look at some of these things, because, of course, since these are all games that we've played, they're all games that we have made videos for in the past. So that's the theory behind it. That's the idea. So I'm just giving our opponents a relatively well-rounded team with a sort of standard all-round character, a big, slow, defensive character, and this guy's gonna be a quick, speedy, offensive character. For us, we are going basically all-out offense. I'm taking 3 copies, or 3 versions of this worm class, which again is a very speedy but relatively low damage and very small aura, so not very good defensively, character. And hope is about average, so when we get banished, when we get checked or taken out of the game, it would take us the average amount of time to come back. However, this particular team is one that I'm particularly fond of because it does have an interesting gimmick where we actually are going to come back from this temporary banishment, this temporary time in which we would normally be unavailable, and when we do come back, we're going to get infinite stamina, so we can just basically sprint full speed ahead at our opponents non-stop. So that's the idea. So again, there's going to be this orb in the middle, so we want to speed over to get it. Okay, for a second there, I thought that the CPU, I forgot to set the CPU to an actual CPU, and I thought I was supposed to play against myself there, because they were standing quite still for a moment. But as you can see, so everyone has their auras. In the case of our opponents, they have the orange. We are the teal team. And so if I were to go into that aura, I would get banished, or temporarily, I would go away. But this team is all built around, if I do go down, then I have characters that come back. And that means I can just sprint straight in and get a score. So that's the idea of our team, and that's just a general idea of what this game is about. So in addition to them trying to move around to block us, they can also, see if they do it, they can cast their aura. So rather than have it be a circle around them, they can sort of shoot it out at us, like so, and if we fall into that, then we will also get taken out that way. But obviously we don't want to do that. We can walk straight in or jump straight in like we did before, or we can throw it in like that, which can help us get it over some of the defenders if they're trying to potentially prevent us from getting in. Or we can pop in like that. So, just wanted to give you guys a quick idea of what the game is about. Now, I think CPU is not even set for the highest difficulty here, so this is probably not going to be all that much of a challenge. As you can probably tell, they are not exactly putting up much of a fight here. So I will now proceed, as I have explained the basics, to completely demolish these guys. So as I said, it's a game that we initially played as the very first game ever on YouTube. It was my first time... Oh, I missed. / ran straight into their aura a little bit. It was the very first game we ever played on YouTube. We played it in the campaign initially, but nowadays we are still playing it to this very day. And I suppose that technically makes it the longest game we've been playing on YouTube. We're streaming it on Twitch every Sunday and then posting the VODs for it. If you've seen those Pyre community right nights, thumbnails or VODs, then that's what this is all about. Again, it is generally a bunch of other people who are coming in and playing multiplayer with us, rather than us just dunking on these CPUs. I'll see if they can... I'll deliberately give them the orb, the ball, and see if they can actually do anything with it. Or if they're too silly to make it happen. So that is my way of trying to get rid of them, which varies a little bit from character to character, how exactly it works. And there you see they do eventually come back once they've been taken out, so it's only a temporary way to try to clear out some space. But if they are crowding around trying to defend their Pyre, their goal, then it makes it a little bit easier to zoom in for the win.
The scribes themselves stood by their side. Thus end this night's proceedings.
So there's a quick look at Pyre. As I said, the first game that we have ever played on YouTube, and because we are technically still playing it, it is our longest game for us to have played. But I think we will transition from here, from our first game that we played, Pyre, into the second game that we played, which was actually another game made by the same developers. So, one moment, as I boot that up, and quit Pyre, and let me just get that initiated. Let's see, there you are. Okay, and if we look at our agenda, you can see we were planning Pyre, our first game, Hades, our second game, which again, made by the same developer, probably a game that people are in general a lot more familiar with than Pyre and the other games made by this developer, Supergiant Games, but all of them are fantastic games. Wow, that was loud. It has been a very long time since I've played this game, so I'm going to be very rusty, and it is also something that, well, let's just say for those of you who have been watching us play Gwent, probably Gwent in particular, and Rogue Mage as well, you probably know that we are not exactly the world's greatest speedrunners. And so when it comes to playing Hades, generally, it takes us a long time to finish a Hades run. So I'm not 100% sure what we may or may not do to expedite the process there, but we'll see if we do truly end up doing a full run or if we cut things a little bit short. But what is Hades? Hades is the most recent game made by Supergiant Games. It is a roguelike RPG-ish game in which we play as Zagreus, the son of Hades, the god of the underworld, and it is our objective to escape from the underworld, and in doing so, we will run into a whole bunch of enemies and perhaps even meet some friends along the way that could give us a helping hand and help us power up so that we can more easily defeat enemies of increasing strength and some bosses, of course, as well. It is a roguelike, which means that the game is designed around you dying a lot, and then when you do die, you can use some of the resources that you acquire over the course of a run to make upgrades and make it easier for you to complete a subsequent run. And so we have beaten this game, and for that reason, we could continue on our existing save file, but come to think of it, could start a new one, and that might be a better way to do a speedier run, because then we won't have any upgrades, so we won't be able to make it quite as far, and it's a better way for you guys to see from the beginning what the game is like. Although, admittedly, I have a controller plugged in and it's not registering at the moment. I'm not sure why that is, so I'm going to try seeing if I can make that change. Because I would very much like to play this on controller. Okay, looks like it's working now. All right, so let's do it. Let's do a new run.
Few tales are told of Hades, whose very name inspires fear and penitence, reminding us of the inevitable fate which we all share. I, however, mean to tell you such a tale. Listen carefully.
Goodbye, Father.
All right, so this is Hades, the most recent game by Supergiant Games. A roguelike
This place.
game in which we will be fighting through dungeons as the Prince of the Underworld, Zagreus, trying to escape from the Underworld and running into a bunch of enemies along the way. We're starting a new run here, or actually a new file here. So although we have beaten this game before, we will be starting from scratch. That way you can see what it's like at the beginning.
I'm leaving. Try and stop me.
And it has been a very long time since I played this game because it was the second game that we ever played on this channel. And played a little bit as of late, but not a lot. And so, and I got hit. You can see our life in the bottom left corner there. These are, of course, all enemies. Some of whom will try to shoot projectiles at us, which is actually the case for these guys. Then there are bigger guys who'll try to hit us. Also, I'm pretty sure that we might have started a new game mode, a variety that I'm not super familiar with, because this room is taking a lot longer to finish than it would normally take. I tried to hit that to break the projectile that they were shooting at us, but alas, it did not work.
There she is.
All right, but we have finished this room, and in doing so, we have now...
It's got to be her. Then here goes nothing. In the name of Hades, Olympus, I accept this message.
unlocked a reward
Hail, noble cousin.
from
Now,
Athena.
Let's get you from that miserable place. I'll see that all of us upon Olympus do our part, beginning here with me.
So then we get the choice to either upgrade our basic attack with a little bit of extra damage and the ability to deflect our opponent's attacks or projectiles back at them. Our cast, which I did once or twice, basically shooting a little projectile at our opponents, and in this case, increase the damage of it, and once again, add a deflecting capability to it, or have a dash that can deflect projectiles and attacks and what have you, and get a little bit of extra damage on this. So, any and all of these can be helpful. There are basic skills. Actually, there's one other basic skill that is not listed here we can upgrade, in addition to a whole bunch of other things. And as you can see, there's a kind of a commonality here. Deflect is, in general, one of the main things that Athena can give us. The dash, in particular, is very effective.
All the way where you are, goddess, but thank you.
So that's the cast. That's the attack. That's the dash. So this is one that we upgraded. Now let us proceed here. And yeah, so we might have done like a new game plus extra difficulty version or something like that, because that previous room was about twice as long as it would normally be. At least. Cool. That is a little area. It has some spikes on it that we'd rather not step onto, of course.
Not now.
Cool. But we can also knock them onto the traps. I honestly can't remember. Did I play this on controller? I thought I did. The controls feel so unfamiliar to me. Maybe it's just that it's been that long. But maybe I legitimately did not play on controller, and that's why it feels so different. But now we have a different type of reward, a key.
Wonder where I can use this.
Which we do not yet have a way to use, but perhaps later on we might find a way to make that happen. And now we will find for the first time we have a choice with which room we go to next, and these icons will actually dictate, will actually tell you what the reward you would expect to get would be. And so once you played Hades a little bit, you get an understanding for what those are, and you can build a run around the types of upgrades that you want to receive. And in this case, let's mix it up a little bit. Let's go here. So we have one upgrade from Athena. And there's our deflecting dash that just shot projectiles at our opponents like that. So it is a nifty defensive upgrade that can, at times, actually turn to a little bit offensive. If we are able to hit back some of our opponent's attacks at them. Almost didn't see this one hiding in the corner there. I will say, although I may not be all that accustomed to the controls anymore, it feels like it is easier on controller, I think. But anyways, this is now our new reward for finishing this room.
That was revelry? People having a good time? Well, sure then. In the name of Hades, Olympus, I accept this message.
Hey there, Zagman. How's it going? Look, you have got to get here with the rest of us already. We've been saving you a spot. Let me see what I can do. Make life a little sweeter for you in the meantime.
And now we meet Dionysus, the god of wine, who will also give us some options for some upgrades. And this time round, we actually see the other ability, basic ability type that we did not see in the previous encounter, that being our special, which is basically just an alternate type of attack. In this case, it's a little bit more of an AoE. I'm not even sure that I've used it all that much, but... So we have that, then we have some more passive things. Gain maximum life whenever we pick up a nectar, which is what that icon is there, and it is a different type of consumable that we've not yet seen. However, we could get one when we pick this up, and it means that we'd like to make a point of picking more of them up if we do take this upgrade. Then, alternatively, after party, if we have a low HP after an encounter, then we get restored back up to that threshold, and the threshold is 30%. So, I actually think this might be a good time to pick up Premium Vintage, because if you take this early, that means you have lots of time to deliberately make a point of picking up those nectars in the future and hopefully get a decent amount of max HP out of it. So at the moment,
Out of wine to liven things up around here.
you can see in the bottom left corner, we have 35 out of 50 HP, and if we take it,
Who should I give this to?
then we're now at 55 out of 70, and you see that little 1 out of 1 in the corner. That is for our casts. These are bloodstones, which is basically our consumable that we use to activate this ranged
It has
attack.
its own reward.
All right. Then we have this icon here for a key, which we've actually seen once before. And we have this icon here for something we've not yet seen. So why don't we go here?
Lance.
And a new type of enemy that we've not yet seen. These guys, also melee attackers. Ooh. What? They lunge at us like that.
Do your worst.
That enemy actually had armor. They were a little bit stronger. Ooh. So they had a second life bar, technically speaking. All right, so here we are gaining this little purple thing, which is darkness, which is another type of currency, consumable resource that we might want to pick up. Then you'll also see in the bottom right corner, so that's where you see the 10 for that purple stuff we just picked up, the 1 nectar, and the 55 coins or obols, which is another type of resource, and, you know, we'll talk a little bit about more of them as we proceed here, but you can see, well, this icon here in this door might look a little bit familiar if you're looking in the bottom right corner, because that is the same icon as the obols, and then this is something that we've not yet seen either, but I think, why don't we go here first? Probably makes a little more sense. Okay, lots of these dudes.
Who else?
More of the same, as it turns out. So there you see the enemy that has the orange life bar. That is technically the armor that I was referring to before. Which means that's it, and you can see it on this enemy as well. It means they have a second life bar. They're generally a little bit stronger. So I think usually these enemies only shoot 1 projectile at a time, but
From the dead.
that sort of mini boss-like enemy instead shoots 3. And then this gives us 100 obols. Currency that we are getting from defeating normal enemies. And then you'll see this is actually an icon that, well, we saw once before. We didn't opt to take it. But it also has that little skull on it, which is significance. Because that means we are in for a different type of mini-boss battle. These guys basically throw little grenades we need to be careful of. Because if they land on us, they will deal a fair chunk of damage. We'd like to try to focus on one of them in particular. Got the armor down on this one. Ooh, almost got hit by that, though. Okay, that one's down. And they actually do drop one on death, and that nearly hit us with the one they dropped on death. We can technically deal a little bit of extra damage if we knock them into a corner or if we backstab them. And down they go. And so now we can accept this gift, or we can actually gift that nectar that we received previously. And what that does is basically, well, offer a little tribute to whoever this might be. And I think you'll find this person a little bit familiar, because if we do it...
I'm indebted to you, Goddess, for all that you and your side of the family have done for me.
Well, it simply isn't.
You'll find that's
to
Athena.
allow such offerings to go unanswered, noble cousin. In turn, I wish for you to have this with my compliments.
Lady Athena, thank you.
And we actually get an item, a permanent item, not just a resource, a consumable resource from her. But that's just from us giving Athena a gift, but now Athena has a gift for us.
In the name of Hades.
And this time, we get more options for selecting upgrades, and here we actually see, I believe for the first time, higher rarity upgrades. So once again, we're choosing between these 3 upgrades, and some of them, these purple ones, are epic rarity, which is quite good, and rare, which is one better than the common ones that we've seen thus far. So we can either have our special be stronger and cause deflect, and that is a lot of extra damage, 114 of course, but as I was saying before, I don't think I've used special all that much, / I'm not entirely sure what the button for it is on controller, so might not take that. Resist trap damage, so the little spike traps that we activated on our opponents on at least one occasion, but not seen too much of that hitting us just yet. We can take 90% reduced damage from that, basically making it almost a non-factor for us, so would opt to take that, but for the most part, you just like to not step on traps. Or we can have it so that our deflect abilities, which right now is our dash, also makes foes exposed, which means that for 5 seconds, they take more damage when struck from behind. So as I was just saying, it is possible, in some situations, to deal extra damage if we hit our enemies from behind. So, not a huge fan of any of these. In theory, this is probably the best one, but Let's go for Blinding Flash just because we already have a deflect ability.
Divine protection.
And now let's proceed. And we've seen this icon before for this type of reward. This one is the Darkness consumable. Well, I walked into that. Tried to walk away, and then I walked into it. Hey, if you guys want to step on the trap, I mean, that works for me. One of them down. A lot of them are respawning here. Yeah, so again, it feels like, I mean, maybe it's just because I haven't played Hades in a very long time. Feels like there are more enemies per room
Phew.
than previously, but maybe I'm just not remembering.
Nice.
Okay,
I'm hurt. Can't heal myself, but I can fight.
this is true. This is true. Okay, so we can get more darkness, or we can get another one of those keys that we don't know, well, we don't really know much about either of them at this point, other than just they are both different types of consumable. So, I mean, we did just get darkness, so maybe we take a key here.
Witches.
There are a lot of them here. Like a whole lot of them here. Definitely benefiting from the deflecting dash, though, so we can shoot their projectiles back at them. Now, if you could not hide directly on top of that trap, I would kind of appreciate that. Ooh, oh, okay, now that's more enemies than I was signing up for. Or at least more than I thought I was signing. Oh, that was bad sequence there. Very bad sequence. Get rid of you guys, and we can just focus on these big dudes. We have taken some big hits here. And they've stepped on some of the traps, so that's nice. Got rid of one of them. Stepped on the trap again, thank you kindly. I almost stepped on the trap.
Like I thought a key.
Alright, so we are running low
One for the stash.
on HP. For what it's worth, as I was saying before, it is a roguelike game, which does mean that, of course, the game is designed around you failing and then trying again, and because there's a lot of randomization with each run, you don't know definitively what you are or not going to get, and so that variability is part of what brings appeal to the game. So, given how we are on low HP, perhaps we go after the reward here that seems to be shaped like a heart. These are both things we've not yet seen before, but let's go this room. And I'm not even sure if I've mentioned it yet, but obviously this goes without saying at this point. The art in this game, and the music as well, is just fantastic. Oh, I ran straight into that too. That was not good. Yeah, this room is very crowded. I'm trying to make it less so. I think they've stopped respawning at this point. Yeah, we are on very low HP. Just you? It is not. Oh, there's more. There are more. It is actually our first time seeing this type of enemy. Ooh, yep, got hit by that too. I'd like to get rid of the ranged enemies, ideally. Okay, I don't think there's much left here. Ooh, more hits. We might only be able to take one at this point. Okay, got rid of that ranged enemy, but these guys, as you can tell, quite quick. Therefore, quite difficult to get rid of. Okay, close call. Very close call. But what we do here is we gain both 25 maximum HP and current existing HP, whatever you want to call it. Alright, more enemies here, of course. Small arena. Two of these big guys. see if we can get rid of that guy who's a little bit lower. Ooh! Oh, that was a trap. I admittedly paid zero attention to. Okay, but there's definitely more than just that, right? In general, I think when they have the armor, that orange life bar, they are more resistant to things like stuns. Ooh, that's a lot of enemies. So that makes them a little bit tougher to deal with. Trying to get rid of the little guys first, ideally. Ooh, okay, up for that. There we go. Nice.
Power. Something for the mirror.
Okay, so
Which one?
now we can either go for this thing that we've not yet seen, or this thing that we did see before, and this we have established is maximum HP, which, again, still not doing great from an HP standpoint, so that might be worth doing. Even though I know we haven't seen this one yet, but maybe we still go for this one here. A lot of these little guys. Whole lot of these little guys.
Think you can stop me?
Ooh, I did not do a great job avoiding that one. And I'm pretty sure I missed there as well. Oh, pretty sure the trap just killed the last enemy for us, but I mean, that works. Take the extra HP, and once you've finished defeating the last enemies in the room, the traps no longer activate on you, for what it's worth. And now we have something that we saw once before, but opted not to go that direction. Well, let's see what it is here. It is
Charon's shop.
a shop manned by none other than Charon, the Stygian boatman.
Why, good to see you, Charon, mate. Just minding my own business, taking in the sights, and hey, what's that you got? Some sort of wares for sale? And I'll just have a look around.
He's not really the talkative type. Alright, so now you see that coin icon, the obols, in our bottom right corner. This is where we can use it. Within a run, it is the type of currency that you can spend to make upgrades for that specific run. So we can either take this thing that we've not yet seen, although we saw the icons for it and skipped it on a few occasions. This, which might look familiar, we've taken it on a couple of occasions already, and a key that we've seen before, and that's obviously the price listed above. So right now we have, what, enough money for technically everything, so I think we'll just take everything here.
Cheers, mate.
It feels unseemly to make contact from that most unpleasant boatman's stash of ill-gotten wares. Nonetheless, this was an opportunity.
So this is a way for us to get an additional Athena upgrade from the shop. And we can either take the basic attack upgrade, which gives us a little bit more damage and deflect on our attack. We can get that special upgrade, although this one is just normal rarity, so it's not nearly as powerful as the previous one was. Or after we take damage, damage foes around us and briefly deflect damage. So, I mean, this is passive and more defensively oriented, or I suppose, if things go wrong, then it could work for you. Whereas this one, in general, just gives us more damage. I mean, I do kind of like trying to make a point of getting higher rarity base attack upgrades so that our normal attack is significantly stronger. It's just normal rarity is, we can probably do better than this. So you could make a case for either of these. As I said, special is generally not something I tend to focus too much on. So, I mean, I guess we'll take the normal attack upgrade just so we have something in that slot. Then this here is something that, as I said, we skipped rooms for before, but now we can purchase it for 100 coins, 100 obols.
Always a pleasure, Charon.
It's a Palm of Power, a pomegranate that upgrades one of our abilities, not from a rarity standpoint, but from a level standpoint. And so in this case, that means 16% extra damage on our base attack, 6 extra damage on our dash, or extra damage, 20% extra damage when enemies become exposed. I think we probably go for the base attack upgrade here. Again, that's going to be the thing that we're using most often. Oh, and we can't quite afford this. My math was wrong. There's also a little bit of lore, perhaps, we might be able to learn about here.
Beyond the present chamber lies the outermost perimeter of Tartarus, promising terrifying dangers far beyond the Underworld Prince's reckoning.
And I can reckon quite a bit.
All right, and there's a little bit of a hint of what we might be looking to expect here, because this is an icon we definitely have not seen before, but it does have a skull next to it. What does that mean exactly? Well, well, well.
Well, this is awkward.
A boss.
Halt, Zagreus. Not one step further.
Come on, Meg. Haven't we had more than enough of each other by now? Besides, don't you have someplace else to be?
Your father sent me. All in all, I'd rather be on your bad side than his. Now you can turn back, like a good little man, or I can send you home the painful way. What'll it be?
Gee. Let's take
I'll have to go with the painful way.
the painful way.
A man after my own heart.
Oh, okay. So this is our first boss fight, and obviously that means our most difficult fight that we've had thus far. By a fairly significant margin, and I should remember what her abilities are, but I apparently do not. At least not well enough. Ooh, meant to dash out of that. She will bring some friends as well. You can see her life bar. Yeah, that's hitting me too. In the top of the screen. So we've made some progress, but as you can see, we are not doing well from a health standpoint, so we are probably not going to beat her here. And that was kind of the intention of this first run, was to, you know, by starting a new one from scratch, probably make it so that we are not going to succeed. And in doing so, make it go a little more quickly. Admittedly, if I'm being honest. This is sort of her special ability, where she shoots a bazillion of these things. Ah, and I tried to deflect them back at her. Trying to be clever and hit her with them, with our deflecting dash, but alas, got hit by a few of them. But as I said, it is a roguelike game.
Damn it.
So it is very much designed around not winning on every run. And when we do die, lose the run, we end up back here at the House of Hades,
Back already.
where there are several things for us to do.
Welcome to the House of Hades, where... Wait, I know you. Guess that means you died out there, huh? Well, don't be sad, though. Pretty much everybody dies sometime.
And people to talk to,
Some of us more than others.
including
Stupid boy.
our father.
I told you nobody gets out of here, whether alive or dead. So how was your wanton ransacking of my domain?
Greetings, Father. My ransacking was a delight, thank you for asking. So I'll just be on my way again.
Be on your way indeed. What do I care? You shall never reach the surface. Go, see for yourself.
All right. So, we'll shoot the breeze a little bit with some people here. Give you a lay of the land of what the House of Hades is like.
Good to see you, lad. Despite the circumstances, remember your training out there. The pain of death is but another obstacle.
So we have gods and also heroic Greek soldiers like Achilles.
And fear is for the weak. Take care, Achilles.
The House of Hades, that dark and lavishly appointed lair of the Underworld's king, is home not just to him, but to his willful progeny.
Who, us?
You know I can hear you, old man.
You have come home.
Oh.
Do not despair, child. Such setbacks are inevitable and may be overcome with effort and with time. You made contact with the goddess Athena. She shall be true to her word.
I believe it, Nex. I'm grateful that you put us into contact. I know you took a considerable risk in reaching out.
The risk is not to me. I expected the Olympians would involve themselves in this eventually. Reveal to them no more than they already know. Are we understood?
Okay, so we're trying to keep things a little bit secret here. Obviously, we are trying to escape the underworld, but we are trying to get the assistance of the Olympians. They are giving us boons to make us more powerful so we can be more successful in our runs.
Yes, we are.
Then go.
And that is Nyx, who is basically our mother.
Hey, room, I'm back.
And then our room.
The bedchambers of Prince Zagreus lie in a perpetual state of utter disarray.
Excuse me?
Despite his lord and master of the house repeatedly insisting that he pick everything up.
It's not even that messy.
Oh, come on, it's not that bad, is it?
It really isn't. Then we have this mirror where we can reflect. And what's this all about, you ask? Well, we of course have only seen how to use one, or technically two, of the currencies. We gifted a nectar to Athena to make her more happy with us. We spent some of our obols, our in-run currency, to buy some things from Charon's shop, but we also can go to reflect at this mirror.
Night and darkness guide me.
Where we can spend darkness, that purple stuff that we acquired in the run. And so rather than being things that we upgrade in a run, this is stuff that we upgrade outside of a run. These are permanent upgrades, whereas the upgrades in the run are temporary upgrades. They're only in effect for that specific run. These are active across all runs. So what we can do is we can either increase our damage and special damage when striking foes from behind. As I said, that's something we can potentially look to do, and it's 10% per upgrade. We can make it so that we restore a small amount of HP every time we go into the next room. Or we can get a Death Defiance, which means that if we would die, we instead come back to life with 50% of our starting HP. And this activates once, and once it's happened once, then if we run out of HP, we die, and the run ends for good. So, well, this is quite potent, and we do have just enough to pick it up, so why don't we make that upgrade there? And as you can very much see, every time we make an upgrade, the subsequent upgrades of that variety increase in cost, because generally speaking, once you load up on a bunch of upgrades, there is a pretty significant amount of strength that you gain.
Okay.
Then we can proceed into this room here, which is the final room in the House of Hades that we have access to here. And what it is the place where we select all the stuff that we'd like to choose for our next run. So for the previous run, we were using our sword, and, well, our cast doesn't really change all that much, but our sword. And that's the special that we were talking about a little bit that I never really used, but basic attack, dashing attack, which I used a few times, and then special, which is sort of an AoE slam. So that's the sword, but there are some other weapons that we could potentially unlock here with the keys that we picked up one or two of on our previous run. So, if we do this...
There we go. Coronacht, the Heart Seeker.
We unlock a new weapon.
Psst, over here. What the?
And, excuse me?
Nice place you got here, boyo. Name's Skelly, how's it going? But enough with the small talk already. I'm here to do a job. So let me have it. Give me everything you got.
Best NPC in the game, and that's saying something, because there are a lot of great NPCs in this game, but he is basically a practice dummy on whom we can use the sword and the weapon that we just unlocked to test out how much damage we do and just generally what it's like to use those various types of weapons.
I don't remember having you on payroll, mate. Who's your supervisor?
Oh, I'm not about to wrap my sources, pal. Just try and beat it out of me.
Okay.
If you insist.
If you insist. So we can switch back. Once we've spent the keys to unlock a weapon, it is permanently unlocked. But as I said, our starting weapon...
My blade.
...was the blade.
Oh, change of plan. I like it.
And so you can hit Skelly here to see how much damage various attacks do.
Yeah.
Like that. And then we can also switch to the new weapon that we just unlocked, which is a bow. Which is obviously very different because it has ranged attacks. If we just do it quickly, we don't do much damage. If we charge it up more, we do much more damage. It actually is powerful, or possible, to do a power strike like that if you time it perfectly. But admittedly, having not played this game for a while, my timing is probably not great on that. But so that is the basic attack. And forget if there's a special. Oh, well, you can't attack nearly as quickly though with the bow. And if you attack without much charge up, your range is also a little more limited. Whereas if you charge it all the way up, your range is much longer. Probably a little bit easier to see if I go from this angle. But that's basically a melee attack at that point. Whereas that's going basically the length of the screen. And then our special is a string of arrows that we shoot out like that, which it's a bit of an AoE, somewhat similar to the sword special, but the damage is lower. So hit more enemies, but deal less damage when you do so, and also less range than at least a charged normal attack. That was me pressing both buttons though. I'd like to shoot over here so I can show you how much range this has, comparatively speaking. There we go. So you have the option of choosing between whatever weapons you've unlocked. Although you start with the sword, it doesn't necessarily mean that the sword is the weakest. It's just a matter of personal preference, and in some cases, because as we saw, your skills vary depending on which gods and goddesses you choose to side with, a certain weapon might lend itself a little more naturally to a certain type of boon. Other than that, we also
just something new to try.
Have this little place where we can select keepsakes. This is the item that Athena gave us when we gave her the nectar. Basically, it was a little trophy of sorts that she gave back to us. And what this does is that it makes it so that we are guaranteed to have Athena show up. And so if we really like Athena boons, we feel like we like the type of skills that we get from her, then we can guarantee that she shows up by selecting this item here. And it also makes it a little more likely that we get better rarity on the boons from Athena. And as you can see, there's a bunch of blank spots where we could potentially unlock additional items from other people that we might be able to gift our nectar to.
All set.
At the moment, that's all we have. If we go over here,
I can do this. First get past the wretched shades of Tartarus. Easier said than done. And doubtless I'll be running into Meg.
You can see in the bottom left corner
what to be just beyond. Find a way
how many
to
rooms we've gotten through.
And after that, all right, let's give it another shot.
So that's sort of a way of keeping track. Sort of a way of keeping track of your high score, if you will. And then going through here is the place where you start your next run. So basically, you do all of your setup in these rooms. You can talk to people in the House of Hades in between runs and sometimes learn some interesting things, or gift them items, gift them nectars. Wrong game, Lids. And get some keepsakes to power up your next run. And that's a look at Hades. And like I said, it was the second game that we ever played on this channel, and a game that we haven't played for a while. But if you are interested in more Hades stuff, then you can check out our Hades playthrough, and we've done a lot of videos on that. Didn't pet Cerberus! Oh, hold on. You're right. There is a very important thing that we forgot to do. It's a very crucially important thing that I forgot to do. You are very correct. You are very correct.
Infernal watchdog Cerberus regards the underworld prince with mixed emotions, from purest joy to deepest melancholy.
You watch over things for me, won't you, boy? You know I'd take you if I could.
Not only can you talk to Cerberus, you can also...
There's a good boy.
At him.
Do not let him manipulate you, Cerberus.
Alright, so that is an overview of what Hades is like, and as I said, it's a game that we've played before. It was the second game that we ever played on the channel. We do have a playlist for this and every other game that we are looking to play today, so if you're interested in seeing more of us doing Hades stuff, then that's the best way to do it. This was, of course, a new run that we were starting from scratch, whereas in the past we've done a separate save file in which we have finished beaten the game and gotten the true ending, if you will. But that is all for Hades. So, with that being said, why don't we take a look here at our agenda to see what we have next on the list. Would have bugged you all day if I hadn't pet the doggy. Oh, and thanks for the support, guys. Thanks for the support. Okay, why don't we shift gears here? Because next on the list, I think, is basically, I'll close up Hades. But if Hades will let me close it, that is. Basically, a game to represent Witcher 1, 2, and 3, which Witcher 1 was the next game that we played, the third game that we ever played on the channel. And so, obviously, it's a little bit difficult to... Oh, is it going to make me do some updates to play Witcher? Yeah, Liz, you need to do some updates to play this game that's like 15 years old. But no, so The Witcher 1, 2, and 3, obviously RPG games from, well, in the case of Witcher 1, what was it, 2008 or something like that? So yeah, about 15-ish, maybe a little less than that, years old. And because they're big RPGs with very decision-sensitive stories, you know what I mean. That's hard to just kind of like start and do a little bit or piece of any of those games. And so rather than trying to do just one mission for The Witcher 1, 2, and 3, I figured that it would make the most sense for us to go into Witcher 2, which has an arena mode, which feels like it's a little bit easier to just go in, play a little bit, and kind of like what we just did with Hades, go as far as we can get before we end up dying. And then after that, we can shift gears. So, admittedly, you know, apparently, it is telling me that I installed the game, reinstalled the game, but is telling me that it needs to do something else for setup, which I'm not entirely sure what that is all about. But as is the case with all the other games that we have played and will play today, we have a video or a playlist for our full playthrough for Witcher 1, 2, and 3 on this channel. So if you're interested in seeing more of that stuff, then that is something you could do as well. How many updates do you need for this game that we have played before and is, in this case, Witcher 2, what, like 11 years old or something? You'd think that Steam would not insist on this, but you see, it has to perform first-time setup. It's important that it performs first-time setup. I know you can't see this right now, but you see, the thing is that it's performing first-time setup. So I'm hoping that that is not terribly difficult for it to do. If it turns out that that'll take a really long time, then we could just shift gears. And now I've not downloaded or reinstalled Witcher 1 or 3, because those ones, as I was just saying, I just don't really see a way to pick those up and jump straight into them for a short bit of time. I mean, I guess we could have done, just pick a random point in The Witcher 3 to jump into and just do one mission that we really liked, I guess, maybe, but that is not currently installed, so that would take a long time. So if this turns out that it's going to be difficult, then we can shift gears and go to the next thing on our list, which would be, looks like Gwent, actually, which is obviously a game that we played a whole lot of on this channel, and a game that we continue to play a whole lot of, but I'm starting to see what looks promising. Yeah, for Witcher 2. Okay, I think we can still make this happen. So let's see what The Witcher 2 has in store for us here. And I'm hoping that, I mean, again, it made us do a little bit of the first-time install stuff, so I'm hoping that it has now done all that it needs to do, and we can jump straight in after that. But if it turns out that, you know, for whatever reason it's going to be difficult, then we can shift gears and hop into Gwent. Now, we have not played The Witcher 2 in a very, very long time. Witcher 1 or Witcher 2 for that matter. Let's watch the cinematic. It's good. Witcher 2. There we go. So, The Witcher 2, or more generally, The Witcher trilogy, of course, an amazing action RPG with magic and a ton of very impactful decisions dating all the way back to The Witcher 1 that have consequences all the way into The Witcher 3. We played The Witcher 1 as our third game on this channel and then proceeded to go into Witcher 2 and of course Witcher 3 from there. And so lots and lots of great memories with this game. And of course, it would be hard to jump straight into Witcher 1, 2, and or 3 into a specific spot. And for that reason, it seemed like it would perhaps be most fitting to jump into the arena for Witcher 2, which is actually something that we did in fact do right in between our Witcher 2 playthrough and Witcher 3 playthrough. Also, hold on, this main menu music, it's so good. It's so good. Witcher 3 has some amazing music, but I think there are definitely some people who skipped out on The Witcher 1 and 2 and missed out on some amazing experience. Yeah, The Witcher 1, it certainly felt dated when we played it, and Witcher 2, however, got a lot of improvements. Sure, might not have been quite as perfectly polished as The Witcher 3 was, but I think there were still a lot of amazing things that we experienced there. So, looking forward to hopping back into the arena mode here. Now, I have not played Witcher 2 in probably 2 years, possibly even more than that. So I'm going to be very rusty. But this is basically like a, well, an arena mode in just about any other game where we are going to be going up against a series of enemies, and if we succeed in a given round against starting off with a relatively basic enemies, we can potentially get some upgrades and make it so we fare a little bit better against later and more difficult enemies. So let's jump in.
A Witcher! Whoa! Finally, one to tell my grandchildren about.
Who can I talk to if I want to fight?
Me, naturally. I know all there is to know about this place.
I was thinking about someone in charge.
If you have an invitation, you've no other formalities to resolve. I can explain everything else, as a wise old bard might explain to the common folk. Ask away.
Alright, so let's see, are there any particular things that we feel like would be useful overview of what we're looking to do here, or have I basically already outlined all these things? I think let's just go for the rules, and I might do just that, give us a better sense as to what to expect here.
Fill me in. What are the fight rules?
They're simple enough. Once you decide to enter the battleground, only the gods can aid you. The fight begins, and you must see it through. You have to defeat each and every foe. Best do it fast and as messily as you can. The rabble loves a good show. Once you kill all your foes, you come back here to lick your wounds and get ready for your next clash, which will be more difficult, naturally. Enter the arena as many times as you wish. No limits as far as that's concerned.
When does it end?
When you withdraw or die.
Yeah, so I think, as they said, it gets more difficult with each subsequent round. I think if you lose, you're still allowed to restart that round. The actually most difficult thing when it comes to progressing through this run, or this arena mode, is that there's no saving. So I very clearly remember when I did the playthrough for this, in between our Witcher 2 and Witcher 3 campaigns, that I had to keep my computer running for several days, because if I close my computer or close the game, then of course the game doesn't save, so I would have to restart from scratch. So, you know, we do like, or at least I'd record a video or two per day, then I'd go off to work, come back from work, maybe record another, but can't turn off the computer, gotta make sure that The Witcher 2 is still running. And basically it was all a matter of either A, how long before the game crashes, or B, how long until my computer insists on shutting down and restarting, or C, how long until I accidentally close out the game. And, well, if you're interested to see how that all turned out, then you can check out the Witcher 2 arena playthrough, which I don't remember if I have a specific playlist actually for the Witcher 2 arena, or that might actually be a little bit hidden. Might take a little bit of fishing to find it, but it does exist. I promise you, it does exist on the channel, and so just search for our previous uploads. I mean, at this point, it was about 2 years ago, so it'll be pretty far back. But alas, let us jump in. Let's see. As he was saying, there are rewards. If you finish a round, then you can potentially get some upgrades. Any advice?
Any advice for someone entering the arena?
You're a Witcher, so I expect you'll find the going easy at first. You never underestimate your foes. Make certain you're at full health. Drink a potion or two. Coat your blade with an oil. In the arena, you'll face both humans and beasts, so have both blades at the ready. You'll be rewarded for each fight you win. If you need to stock up between fights, come see me. Each fight will be more difficult than the last. In time, you'll wish to trade your equipment in for something superior. According to the rules, you're allowed a comrade in the arena. If you've coin at the ready, you might consider paying a mercenary of one sort or another to watch your back. Talk to those over there. You might find one who suits your needs.
Okay, and I do remember that. There are some, basically, NPCs that you can pay a lot of money to help go in the arena with you. If they die, I'm pretty sure they only last for 1 round. Even if they die or not, they might only last for 1 round, and they're very expensive, so I vaguely remember that they did not work very well for us. They tended to die very quickly, and it might also be if you attempt a round, you hire someone, a mercenary, to come along with you for that round, they die, and you don't succeed, you might permanently lose the money and still not have them in for the next round anyway. They might just, basically, if you want to try again, you have to repurchase them, and you're just blowing through even more money. So I remember I didn't have a great experience with them, but
best of luck to you.
Okay.
Don't get killed.
So, what difficulty would we like to do? I mean, we'll probably do normal, just because.
Just look at that.
Although I have played this game and the arena mode before, as I said, it's been about 2 years since I've done so I don't even remember what the controls are. So that's going to be a little bit of a learning curve. But, so this is our little area in between where we can talk to some of the people who we can potentially hire to go along with us. I think, this guy is basically a melee combat dude. That's the guy we were just talking to. There's a mage, I believe, that we can have join us if we would like. And I think there's one other guy.
You'll not find anyone better than me.
I guess the dwarf. I thought there was a bowman as well somewhere. I think there's like a little hidden area down here. I don't actually think is of any significance at all, but I just remember that it exists. It exists. But yes, so obviously we're Geralt of Rivia, which is the main character of the Witcher trilogy, 1, 2, and 3. And we are a Witcher, which is basically a person who has been mutated to have increased physical strength and stamina and what have you, and is a professional, not quite bounty hunter, but very close to that, monster slayer, and what have you. And so we are skilled at taking on difficult opponents. So let's jump in here, and I think it tells us who we're expecting to run into just before we begin. Okay, so points rewarded with win 50, bonus points 200. I think that is, yeah, if we do it quickly. Foes, 3 swordsmen, 1 armored footman, who I assume is just a little bit stronger, and an arbalist, so someone with range. For rewards, we get some boots. Oh, we can actually see more specifically. Some boots, leather crafting equipment, I believe, that upgrades some of our gear to give it extra armor, and a new sword. So, okay, let's start. I don't remember any of the controls. They are, I think, somewhat similar to Witcher, Witcher 3. Apparently that is, a sign. But I don't remember the specifics. So, we will see how long we last. This guy is, Arbalist dude is shooting us from somewhere. I'm not sure where. Oh, it's this guy. Let's get rid of this guy if we can. Okay, that was the sword dude, or rather the bow dude. So now we have, I think we do take damage if we walk through the fire, but we have a stronger sword dude who is more heavily armored. And then, that guy right there. We have still 2 of the weaker dudes. Our health is in the top left corner. Obviously you can see the health on all these guys as well. So we can knock people back with our sign like that. If we do just try to keep on attacking like that, eventually they will start to block us. Pretty sure there's a parry button somewhere. I don't know what it is. That's it. Okay, maybe we get clever. Test it out. Try to do some combos. Like that. Okay. So, not so bad on the first one, of course. Also, yes, I remember that the audio for this is, like, insanely loud. Hold on. We'll take... Oh, we get to pick... Oh, we pick one of these 3. Okay. So let's select this. I guess, the sword. And I'll turn down the volume. I remember that as well. I remember that it was super loud when I recorded it, and I didn't realize at the time, but let me change that. The arena mode in particular, for some reason, I think was super loud. Okay, so hopefully that's a little bit better. Sorry about that. Obviously, it's kind of hard to tell when we're in here. It's mostly a matter of when we're in the arena. But so now we have, what, 63 points in the top right corner and 150 orens, which we can use to upgrade stuff. I think we can purchase things from this guy.
A thunderclap and hailstorm combined.
Thanks, I think. Yeah, so we can trade with you. So we just picked up this sword, which we'd probably like to equip that. I assume it's better than our existing sword, but admittedly I did not check. Then we can buy crafting materials. We can buy actually throwing weapons, which in some cases can be a useful tool for us to have. Other upgrade materials and oils that increase the power of our sword, especially against particular types of enemies. Potions we can consume. You can see the effects down below, and you might recognize some of these names from The Witcher 3 as well. I'm not sure if Rook is in Witcher 3, but some traps we can set to deal damage to enemies that step on them. Bombs, another ranged ability to either disable or deal damage to our enemies directly. Textbooks? I don't remember how exactly those work. If they give us either just tips on fighting those types of enemies, or if they actually give us passive damage against them. I don't recall how that works, because that is definitely a Witcher 2 specific thing. And of course, The Witcher 2, as we were saying before, is the normal game mode. You'd be doing a campaign, but we are doing the arena mode, which is mostly just fighting. And this little bit in between the matches. So we'll go a little bit longer. You know, as I said, I think I chose to do the arena mode because it's easier to jump straight in and stop whenever feels like it is the right time to do so. We can get a better sense for how loud this is when we're standing right next to it. It still feels like this might be on the loud side, so let's turn it down a little bit more, I think. Maybe like that. Hopefully is a little bit better. Even that still feels loud. Just looking at my what the streaming software says, and it's like basically suggesting that the game is potentially still way louder than I am. So maybe that's the right balance. Let's see what we're going up against next. Oh, also, wait, before we do that though, let's look at our inventory and let's swap out our sword. So we have a silver sword, which is used to fight monsters, and we have a steel sword that is used to fight humans. And the sword we just got the upgrade for is a steel sword, and it has, what, 1 base damage and 1 better damage on the low end, 2 better damage on the high end. And we can sell our old equipment for additional monies if we want to purchase other upgrades from that dude. But again, I don't think we're going to go that far into this run. We'll see how far we make it before we end up dying, but that might be all we do here is see how long we last. All right, so Bandit Halberdier, so it's like a spear-like weapon. Shield Bearer, that guy's going to be tough to break through, I think, especially given how we've seen that enemies can very much block us. And Bandit Swordsman, okay, we'll receive Orens and either some trouser armor, another steel sword, okay, but admittedly we might have wanted to have waited for a better sword rather than immediately hopping straight into that, or some gauntlets with some base armor and other types of defenses. But all right, let's jump in. Let's try this one out. Oh, those are very long weapons. Yes, they are. Also, I missed. Also, that guy's just standing there while I attack his friend, which was appreciated. Okay, now, admittedly, that time they didn't. But it kind of just feels like... Okay, now this is the shield bearer dude who conveniently was not facing... Oh, wow. Okay, now, I also completely ignored them, so that's fair. They did kind of hit me for a lot. Oh, they're still... You're alive. Let's change that. Also, I was not trying to attack you. Okay, there's definitely a lock-on button as well, but I don't remember. What's the parry button? This was? Okay. Okay, don't step on the fire if we can avoid it, I think. Generally speaking, it's probably the way to go about doing things. It's like, do we try to get clever and parry you? Oh, what the heck? That wasn't the guy who was crouching to hit us, was it? Might even be able to one-shot people if they're on the ground like that. Oh, that's our... We can change our sign. Like... Oh, well, hold on. What was it? Like this? A little clunky. We have Igni, which is Firebolt. We could use for more offensive purposes if we'd like. Like that. If we wanted to, we could do it as more of a ranged character. That did not hit the person I thought that was going to hit. I do remember that was, oh, one of my complaints, I guess you'd say. Oh, again, didn't hit the enemy I thought that was going to hit. About the arena mode was, again, didn't hit the, okay, well, we're like about to die because it's insisting on us hitting the enemy that I'm not trying to attack. And we're still getting hit. Okay, we definitely have a potion somewhere. But it's not there. I also just don't know how to drink it. So we're probably gonna die, to be honest. Or we'll just annihilate, or not annihilate them, get annihilated by getting really greedy with attacking them. Yeah, so definitely the combat feels quite clunky. I know there's a lock-on button, but I don't remember what it is. And so like there's, let's see, if we continue, I think it drops us right at the beginning of that encounter there. Let's see. Yeah, it does. Okay. So yeah, there's definitely a lock-on button, which does feel like that would be really useful right now, because almost every hit that we took came from us attacking an enemy other than the one that I wanted to attack. So... oh no, that's not it. Where are controls? Somewhere? Control options, but that's very much not good. What the heck? That's also weird. Thanks, but no thanks? Sure. Thanks for not telling me what the controls are at the control options menu. But okay, we'll jump straight in to this next one here. We'll give it another shot. Maybe we'll go with the Igni right off the bat. And try to get some of the weak guys. Okay, or you'll block us immediately. Did we get hit by that? We did not. Also, there's probably a sprint button. It's not that. It's this. That was us attacking an enemy that I didn't know was there, but I guess that works. That also didn't really work as intended, but okay. I mean, it might just be that poking people ow with Igni is generally the way. Okay. Remember what I said? Locking onto enemies would be kind of nice. Yeah, it's like all over the place with who it's hitting. Now, admittedly, I'm just completely attacking them with Reckless Bandit, which is, you know, asking for trouble. But okay, yeah, we're gonna die again, and this time it is my fault. But okay, I mean, if we can face you 1v1, let's see, hold on. Might we have a better sign to use? So Igni is our fireball. Ard we were using before, which can kind of stun them. Like that, or not, or not. Yeah, that, like, feels like that should work, and then it kind of doesn't. and they have like way quicker counterattacks than we do. Feels weird. Like, how are we not annihilating this guy who's on the ground? I'm not sure. We're dead. Yeah, you know, definitely feeling some of the warts there. With, I mean, the combat system in general is similar to The Witcher 3, but it just feels way, way clunkier than The Witcher 3. And I think, you know, initially when I started playing The Witcher 1 and then played Witcher 2 and then played Witcher 3. And the jump from 1 to 2 is ginormous. Witcher 1, I jokingly often refer to as a rhythm game because it's really not running around trying to dodge enemies and time your attack, or you are trying to time your attacks. But rather than, you know, sort of a real-time thing, it feels like you just walk up to enemy and press the attack button in a certain sequence, and that dictates whether or not you deal damage to them. And it doesn't really feel like combat in that way. Whereas Witcher 2 was the first one in which it started to use this system, yes. But as we said, the whole locking on would be tremendously helpful, but I cannot find where one does that, which is kind of important because as we saw, yes, that time I just ran straight in and tried to whack our sword against people's heads, and sometimes we kill them, but more often than not, their friends killed us. So that's not ideal. But Witcher 3, by that time, it became much smoother, and, you know, going from Witcher 2 to Witcher 3, I probably at the time thought, oh, you know, it's similar, but yeah, it's a little bit better, but Witcher 2 was quite good, right? But now going back from 3 to 2, the difference feels perhaps much bigger than I had realized at the time. So, I mean, we could give this one more shot, and maybe I'll play a little more safely this time, but clearly, you know, without having the keys to the kingdom here, it is a little bit tough. It really looked like they just attacked themselves. Like, is there a sprint button? I assume there's a sprint button. That is definitely not the enemy that I was trying to attack. That is not either. What the heck? It's not even that it's just like, oh, rather than attacking the enemy you're trying to hit, it goes after the enemy that's, you know, right next to him. It's like, no, it's gonna go for the enemy that is all the way over. No, that's definitely not how you change the target. That's definitely not how you change the target. It looked like it was showing analog stick, so I tried. Oh, did that work? No, that was just coincidence that it switched person there. Weird. Nope, that's not it either. Oh, well, I walked into that. And wow! Wow! You see how quickly we took damage from those guys? Okay, well, I mean, we know how this one's gonna end then, I think. Turns out this one has not gone really much better. I don't think we fall off the edge, but... Alright, one last thing that we need to check. Do we take damage from walking into the fire? Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. Alright, so, you know, maybe as it turns out, Witcher 2 Arena is perhaps not quite as good, doesn't quite stand the test of time as much as I thought it might. I think in large part it's probably that, you know, I just don't really remember how to properly play The Witcher 2, whereas when I did the Arena mode previously, it was at the end of our Witcher 2 campaign, so I was in the Witcher 2 mindset. And now, as I was just saying, it's kind of like if you were playing Witcher 3 most recently and you try to go back to Witcher 2, the transition is perhaps a little more significant than I had realized. So it definitely takes some getting used to. And, you know, as we were saying, you could spend a little bit of money and make some upgrades here, but I mean, this is just the second encounter. So clearly, you know, this one is not supposed to be terribly difficult. And it's not so much the enemies that are causing us problems as much as it's just the, well, not knowing controls and little gameplay gimmicks and what have you. So, you know, I don't think we'll force the issue here. This was mostly just a quick way to take a look at something that was supposed to be representative of our time in The Witcher 1, 2, and 3. And because, you know, it's not like we're going to start a new Witcher trilogy run right now and finish this in one sitting. Absolutely not. But if you're interested in more Witcher stuff, then of course we have played a Witcher 1, 2, and 3, and even Arena Mode, and done a playlist for all those things on YouTube, so you can check that stuff out if that seems like that is of interest. I promise I did better on our previous Witcher 2 Arena run. There were some really difficult enemies, but those were not them. I specifically remember I had nightmares of the Kingslayer enemies, which were basically, you know, we just encountered some, what are supposed to be relatively basic, simple human soldier bandit dudes, but you'll start to run into some monsters and eventually even some witchers as well, who have many of the same types of skills as Geralt does, and even items. I think in some cases they can throwing knives and bombs at you and what have you. I think that's in part what made the Kingslayers in particular so difficult. And so, you know, it's like there's the first time you run into them, you get 2 Kingslayers, and then next time you get 4 Kingslayers. Then it turns out there's a stronger version of the Kingslayers, and you get 2 of them. Then it turns out there's, you know, you get 4 of the stronger versions of the Kingslayers, and those were just the ones that were like, oh my goodness, how ever am I going to defeat these guys? So those were the ones I remember that gave me some real challenges. But when I was in peak Witcher 2 form, I think these were the types of guys, you know, we could blow straight through and not have to worry about them too much. But I think that's about it for Witcher 2 Arena. So, with that in mind, shall we take a look at our agenda? Because next up is Gwent, which is of course also very much Witcher themed, but let us perhaps close up Witcher 2. I'm curious though, how many people did end up playing Witcher 2 Arena? I feel like it was a game mode that perhaps people just didn't even realize existed. In some cases. It might have been a DLC even. Might have technically been a DLC. That might have been a thing. Like the, yeah, technically it's Witcher 2 Enhanced Edition that I have, and so maybe that it only comes with the Enhanced Edition, that's probably it. But anyways, let's boot up Gwent here. Of course, Gwent is, the Witcher-themed card game that I imagine many of you are familiar with. Alright, so next we have Gwent, which was the next game that we played on YouTube, and so this is, of course, the Witcher-themed card game, and we have, yes, we may have initially played Gwent a long time ago. In fact, I think initially what I did, I want to say the first video or two was standard mode, and then, of course, I did relatively soon thereafter try out a seasonal event. I had no idea what I was doing for the seasonal event, and it was not so much a video that was structured as a, here's the type of deck you could play to succeed in this event, as much as it was just a, I have no idea what this event is. Let's go see what it is together and learn it collectively. But so I'm pretty sure I ran basically the same exact deck for several seasonal events in a row until I realized, hey, you know what? Maybe people would like to see different types of decks that are designed specifically for these events. And of course, that is a lot of what we do nowadays with Gwent, because it is very much still a type of game that we are playing very regularly, and in many cases, probably the game that a lot of people had followed the channel in order to see. But yeah, looking back at a Witcher 2 Arena, didn't like the combat much, seemed clunky as well. Yeah, I remember my first impression of the Witcher 2 combat was that it was very good, because compared to Witcher 1, it was a big improvement, but then the difference between Witcher 2 and Witcher 3, I think it got a lot better there, and maybe because the system was similar, I didn't read too much into it at the time, but I think going back from Witcher 2 going back from Witcher 3 into Witcher 2, it becomes much clearer just how much clunkier Witcher 2 is. But now for this one, I think we'll go into the seasonal event. Banished is the currently active one, and this is, of course, what we tend to do when it comes to Gwent, is play the seasonal events. And so, I think this week, we did 3 different decks? 3 or 4 different decks for this event. The most common deck for this event is Nilfgaard, because basically in Banished, so it's an alternate game mode rather than standard rule set. It is a game mode in which, after we select our starting hand, every card in our deck gets banished. So basically, you have your starting hand of 10 cards, and that's all you're going to get. So usually the go-to deck here is Nilfgaard with a bunch of very high base power cards, and then cards that can destroy high base power cards that your opponent might have. So that is the most common choice, but I hesitate even to call it a meta, because although it is certainly the most popular, it is definitely not the most effective, because if you know how to counter it, it is very easy to counter. Well, I'm sure now that's going to come back to bite me. But we have several decks that we did this week that are designed to do just that. So let's see. Get to see all the names of the decks that I have for other events and what have you. Let's, ooh, sneak preview. Maybe, possibly, but maybe not. Let me just find what is actually... Okay, so we have a Scoia'tael deck that we did for Nature's Gift. We have a Northern Realms deck that we did for maximizing resilience. And we have a Monsters deck that is designed to basically just be a pure Nilfgaard counter. And I think what I was doing most recently was, yeah, Monsters, I would argue, is in most situations the best deck in this event with a Rocket Swarm. But I have already gotten the contract for completing 100 Araka Swarm, or winning 100 Araka Swarm matches, whereas I have not done that for either Uprising or Nature's Gift, and so I've been playing that a lot more as of late, those two decks, and although my first impression was that Monsters was really good, and probably the best, I've been pleasantly surprised by the effectiveness of these other two decks as of late, so might jump in with, I don't know, what do we think? Should we go Scoia'tael, or should we go with Northern Realms here? I think maybe we'll go Scoia'tael. So let's hop in, and we'll do, you know, a match or two. Maybe the good thing about this event is, because you don't draw cards in between rounds, that means you have fewer cards and fewer cards to play, so matches are generally a little bit quicker than usual. That is, if you can get queued into one. Doing that weird thing where sometimes it bugs out. Let's try again. Quick, somebody else jump in. Match up against me. You'll see my hand. Oh, also have my controller plugged in, so let's not play on controller. Alright, so going up against, ooh, Northern Realms here. That's interesting. And we'll go first. Alright, so not really sure what to expect out of Northern Realms stockpile here. This might be the first time I've ever seen someone use this leader ability in this event. But what we're trying to do is we're going to play a bunch of cards with Symbiosis, which gives us Wandering Treants whenever we play a nature card. Then we're going to play a bunch of nature cards. So we want to balance out how many Symbiosis units we have with how many nature cards we have. So we get more powerful Treants when they do get spawned. Oh, okay, well, thanks. Well, one thing we could probably guess about that opponent is they were probably going to play a Rune Mage at some point. Maybe they didn't draw into their Rune Mage, so maybe that's why they forfeited immediately. Alright, so attempt number 2. Alright, so going up against Skellige here. And we'll go first. So for our deck, we are looking to get a combination of Symbiosis and nature cards to trigger that Symbiosis. So we want to get roughly an even balance there. Having a little more on the nature side is probably better than having a little more on the Symbiosis side. Otherwise, you're just never going to trigger that Symbiosis. This is some Symbiosis, but it is our weakest Symbiosis card, so let's try swapping you out. That's a little bit better. We definitely do have more nature than Symbiosis, though, so maybe we swap out one of our weaker nature cards here and try to get another Symbiosis unit. Yeah, we might stick with this. We have a couple of dwarves. That is the one exception to our nature and Symbiosis stuffs, because they have decent tempo, or in this case, or resilience, in this case. So what we'll do here is, since we aren't going to draw cards in between rounds, we're going to keep this round very short. We're on blue coin, so we're going to play this first turn, and probably only play this first turn. So we get the Lamp Djinn from our stratagem, and maybe just Zoltan. This Zoltan, that is. If we were on red coin, we could hit them, spawn in some dwarves, and get a little more value out of this Zoltan, because the boost would actually matter. But in this case, we're pretty much just looking for the carryover. Now, they have some damage with their leader ability. They may be able to immediately destroy that Zoltan. I'm curious if they go all in on the damage here. Yeah, they can. But here's the thing. Because we have two separate units on the board, they destroyed one of them. They did not destroy the other. We still have more power than they do. So we're going to pass here. And if they want to win round one, they're going to need to play one extra card. And because they aren't going to draw cards in between rounds, that means that that one card disadvantage will be permanent unless they dry pass in round two, and that is our plan, is to have a short round two so we can have a long round three. So yeah, they'll play what is basically a throwaway card here, so that they win round one, but then we're hoping that encourages them to dry pass in round two. And do they do that? It doesn't look like it. Okay, Francis Bedlam would suggest they have intentions of going pretty far here. So this is the tricky thing, is if they do try to bleed us, we have some cards that do really well in long rounds, like Frexinate in particular. Do we commit it? Do we not commit it? We'd like not to do that right off the bat. I mean, this, not only is it not just a throwaway card, it is a card you want to have on the board for a long time. So that suggests that they are going to have this be a long round, but let's not overreact just yet. Let's use Zoltan's Company, because this gives us pretty good tempo, and it takes up a lot of space, which means that if we try to do this in the same round that we use our Symbiosis plus nature cards, then we're going to run out of room, probably. So for that reason, I do like using it as our round two card if necessary, and it is enough for us to catch them. But yeah, they're going further here. Fukusia, that is a big play. But into an Axe Wielder, which does feel like it's kind of overkill. Trying to damage an armored Rowdy Dwarf, and, you know, we have armor here now, which also feels kind of silly. So we can go Zoltan Warrior is, again, a card that is technically not necessary for nature plus Symbiosis synergies. So for that reason, let's use you here so we can try to save our nature Symbiosis synergies. And this armor should make their damage more difficult to trigger, and it means that, once again, we are outpacing them here. And I'm deliberately not hitting the armor on this Axe Wielder, otherwise it'll deal more damage to us. Okay, I mean, they are pretty clearly trying to go further here. They would not play Defender if they had intention of passing after this. So that's a tough position for us to be in, then. Yeah. So want to save these two as our best Symbiosis engines, and then have the Symbiosis trigger them. But we actually have, what, 1, 2, 3, 4 Symbiosis cards remaining, and not that many nature cards left after having used Zoltan's Company. So let's go now with Symbiosis in that case. And tempo-wise, we are still doing better than them. Now, we are going to take likely at least 1 point of damage, possibly 2 points of damage from this rain here. But the benefit here is that if we are forced into playing more nature cards, we do technically, at this point, have the capability of setting it up a little more effectively. Alright, but I don't like where this is headed. They are pushing hard. They're pushing pretty hard. So Francis Bedlam is generating value the longer he stays on the board. So if we are going to destroy a card, we would like it to be him. We would have liked to continue to alternate between Symbiosis cards and Nature cards, so that we have at least some stuff remaining in round 3. If we have one card left in round 3, we'd like it to be Ethne, because she can be a 10-point slam when she evolves into her final form. So let's go... They have started to do much better from a tempo standpoint. Let's... I don't love it, but let's go Phyrexian it. Let's... right, we can't hit Francis Bedlam. Darn. Okay, this damage is not going to be super helpful. In that case, put the Vitality on you so we can more easily get you off cooldown here, but the thing is, on one hand, we want to save Phyrexian. On the other hand, if round 2 goes so long that we don't have time in round 3, then Phyrexian is suddenly very weak, so we need to strike that balance here. So now let's go with Abandoned Girl, and that means we will have one Symbiosis card for round 3, but it is a very powerful one once she evolves into a Ethne Wrath of Broccolon Symbiosis 3 card, so I mean, we could at this point justify potentially going with some of our nature cards. We'd like to save one if possible, but Abandoned Girl gets powered up, gains vitality based on how many other Dryads we have in the row, and we are starting to load up on additional Dryads. So, I mean, again, I'm deliberately holding back on this order ability because it's overkill damage on any of you guys, or we're just in armor, which is not ideal, but we might need to settle for this, otherwise you might get destroyed on this turn. So I think we will do that. And you will come off cooldown on our next turn. I don't think we need to Vitality at the moment, but it is a little bit tempting. Bonica for healing, and yeah, you have taken damage there. It's a good play. It's a good play. Alright, so now the real problem is that, yeah, Nature's Rebuke does not have a good target here. We'd like to get the death blow on this. Let's do this, and do this, to get a bunch of Dryads. So now when we play our next nature card, it's going to be very effective. Let's go Bountiful Harvest. Let's see if we can get damage here. Ooh, Sorceress does give us potentially more nature cards, which is fantastic. It does require that we play it in this row, though. And I'm glad that did not spawn in the range row, because otherwise it's likely to get hit by this rain, and that's going to make it less effective. So we might even give you Vitality. What's up, Anor? How are you? We're doing some Gwent. Hammonds to move a card to the other row. Give it Bleed. It's a card that they put the status on. Alright, so now, I mean, for what it's worth, we do improve in this range row suddenly. But now, we are definitely fine with playing nature cards because we have a bunch of Symbiosis. We have, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, and potentially 2 nature cards we could play on this turn. So, still nothing great for Nature's Rebuke. Might need to go Shaping Nature here. And with it, let's go for the Pure Boost. And maybe even keep this Dryad alive to avoid triggering this Death Wish. Yes, it means we're going to take more damage from the bleed, but... Spawn you in. Then go here, and... Technically... I mean, we could get Nature's Rebuke and set that up for more damage on you. Maybe take you out, but let's go Tempering, because what this does... If we put it on Zoltan Warrior... Is now he's armored, which means he will deal 1 damage to a random enemy unit at the end of the turn. And they've realized that in a long round, they can't catch us. So, yes, they tried to bleed us in round 2, but we did enough to set ourselves up if we needed to use our Symbiosis engines in round 2 to make them effective, and we did. And we made sure to save Ethne, who we actually put an additional hand boost on. Because she is a solid point slam for us at 12 power. and she will get the chance to trigger that symbiosis when we use this Nature's Rebuke. So this is really good. We actually won't have anything to use Nature's Gift on until we use this Nature's Rebuke and spawn in a Treant, and so we won't be able to trigger both turns of Nature's Gift, so it's not perfect. We also are somewhat subject to having a good unit to go after with this Nature's Rebuke, but let's see what happens here. So there's Ethne. Very solid point slam. And immune, so very hard for them to do anything to stop her. They have Herkia, that is, I mean, she actually can deal, oh. Not sure why you would play her in the range row. Yes, you deal 1 damage per turn, but you technically could have used that order ability and would have been close, but I think they know. I think they know that we have won this one. And there you have it. Didn't look great in round 2, but we found a way to counter their bleed and take the win. And apparently finish a daily that I didn't even realize that we had. Sure. All the more reason to have played Scoia'tael. Alright, so we could maybe do one more. Actually, let me take a quick look at our agenda here. How much more stuff are we trying to squeeze in? Because the answer's a lot. The answer's a lot. So, well, on second thought, maybe it would make sense for us to transition after that match. Unless, I mean, those matches are quick for this event, but still... can we squeeze in one more? Maybe we can do a quick one. Maybe we can do a quick one. Let's switch over to the deck that I was saying we might do here. So, again, this is the seasonal event, Banished seasonal event. The seasonal events change every week. They're alternate rule sets. And so what we are doing is, every week we're coming out with deck guides for specific decks that work well with that rule set. And so these are all decks that we have used and created videos for, so if you're interested in trying them out, you can check those out on YouTube as well. But let's go for this other one. So we just did Scoia'tael, and the idea there was play Symbiosis cards. They'd spawn in Wandering Treants, and when we play Nature cards, the more Symbiosis, the stronger the Treants. Now, our idea for this one is Northern Realms, and we are going to spam a bunch of copies of the Meditating Mage card, and by doing so, we will gain resilience. Excuse me. By doing so, we will gain resilience, which means that the cards will carry over from one round into the next, and so we don't have crazy point scoring potential in one round, but if we can have most of our points carry over into the next round, that means late on, it is very hard for our opponents to catch us. And we can play very aggressively. Alright, so going up against Nilfgaard here. And they'll go first. Alright, so because they're going first, we will probably dry pass in round 1, although technically speaking, this deck does actually like to go pretty hard in round 1 and round 2, because the whole point is to have a bunch of carryover, and if we aren't playing much in round 1 or round 2, then our resilience doesn't mean much by the time we are in round 3. So let's get rid of Redanian Elite here. Casting Contest can help us reset the Meditating Mages, but we want to get as many of these as possible. So let's dump you. And Tisea can also be something to reset those mages. We don't have that many of them, though. That's a little bit concerning here. Okay, so Nilfgaard has point slams. Like Imperial Golem. It's their second best point slam. Technically, Tibor is a 13-point play, which they may or may not have. We could actually use Villain Trentonmirth, which is enough to single-handedly win this round if they were to pass with this. I mean, it seems like they're just trying to put a whole bunch of points on the board immediately and pressure us to try to catch them. But this would destroy the Imperial Golem, and then it'd be 6 points versus 5 points. We'd win out if it was just our one card to their one card. But we might save this for round... No, we should play it. We should play it. As we were saying. With this deck, we actually do want to play a little more aggressively in round 1. Now, playing Villain Treadmirth this early, I still usually don't like, because if they have any control, yeah, they're going to use it here. And we really should have waited a little bit more before playing Villain Treadmirth, because then they might have wasted something like Vilgefortz on something that was less important. But, okay. So, I mean, that being said, those are two really big cards. Now, Vilgefortz is just amazing this event. So, in all the worst ways, but incredibly toxic. But, we might, at this point, want to pass here. And then round 2, we're hoping they actually play, so we have reason to just spam Meditating Mage after Meditating Mage after Meditating Mage after Meditating Mage, and then reset those Meditating Mages with all these, and if one of them gets destroyed, we can use Necromancy to get it back. I think that's the plan. So we actually want them to be greedy in round 2 and try to bleed us. Because otherwise, it's just up to outscoring them. And we don't have a ton of pure points. Ah, they do dry pass. Okay, we're in trouble. So what we're actually going to do here is we're probably going to play Meditating Mage. It will not get Resilience when we're just playing it by itself. It would take multiple turns to make that happen. We'd have to get another Meditating Mage out there. But because we have Necromancy, which plays a bronze card from our graveyard, we want to make sure we have a bronze card in our graveyard. So I'm going to deliberately have that be this Meditating Mage. Or, well... Hold on. No. Let's do Chapter Wizards. And hope for a Meditating Mage. Granted, we didn't get one, but... Eratus Adept could actually still be quite good. So this will go into our graveyard. That will be likely the thing that we get out with Necromancy. But this Chapter Wizards does have Resilience, so that is still a form of carryover for us. And I think what we'll do here is because we did not play much in round 2 and therefore weren't really able to benefit from the Resilience, which is usually what this entire deck is built around, we're going to pivot a little bit. We're going to go in a slightly different direction here. We're going to just spam Patience Mages and try to boost this Eratus Adept up to ridiculous levels. So I think that actually means we may want to go Rune Word first and seek out something other than a Meditating Mage. Granted, I'm not thrilled with the Meditating Mage. Normally that'd be what we're looking for, but on this occasion, not as much. So we could get a second Meditating Mage out immediately, or we could wait and... yeah, we'll do it. So, means we will get lots of patience ticking here. And we actually kind of want them to overreact and lock one of these things. Because we'd rather they lock one of these rather than lock the Eratus Adept that we're going to get from here. We probably should have used this before playing Rune Word, so we could guarantee that we get an additional Eratus Adept rather than an additional Meditating Mage. As we were saying, these are probably not as valuable to us. Would have liked to have gotten Rune Mage, which is in our deck, but we didn't draw into it, because that would have given us more options with the Rune Word. Very greedy. Loading up on the boost there. I mean, obviously we don't have Villain Treadmirth anymore, so we don't have a great counter to that. But now let's go with Necromancy here. And we'll get the Eratus Adept. So this, we do want this to very much stay alive. We can create another copy of it with reinforcements, but it'll get boosted up from these Patience ticks. And we can actually use these Patience abilities somewhat early, and then reset them with Tisea and or all of our casting contests. Okay, Vigo is going to create what? Lock. Yeah, I figured. Not on you. That's what I was concerned about. Okay, well, we can still create another one. Yes, and I think we will. And I'm deliberately row stacking our range row because, of course, we are Uprising, which means not only are we going to get a Lyrian Scytheman from our leader ability, we're also going to get one from our hand, and this gets boosted based on the number of boosted units in this row, so we're trying to get a bunch of boosted units in this row. And we'll wait one turn before using these. Okay, Brothans. More spies. Not loving that. Not loving that. Yeah, they don't have a great option here. But it does still trigger Assimilate, and that's saying something. So, my plan was going to be to activate Meditating Mage abilities and then play Tisea. But I think we have to do this. Then Tisea. Then all the casting contests. And finish with Scytheman plus Scytheman. And the Scythemen can be quite decent tempo. So even though they do have a lead on us at the moment, there's still a chance. Things did not go according to plan here. So I think chances are they are probably still going to win. That's not great either. Don't particularly like that. Who has last say? They do. Yeah, that's gonna be a problem too. Yeah, I think we lost, but we'll see what we can do here. So now let's go activate both of these mages and then use Tisea to reset them. So again, the reason why we didn't love getting these in round 3 is because now the resilience doesn't matter because we're already in round 3, so the carryover is a non-factor. So that's why we wanted round 2 to go longer. But alas, it did not. So kind of missed the boat on that aspect. And when it comes to just pure pointage, Meditating Mages are not great. And yeah, I figured they were going to get Phantom R out here as well. Okay, so now we proceed to, well, use these again, or at least one of them, and then use Casting Contest to reset it. So, I mean, you have plenty of vitality, so I guess we'll do this one. Problem is, these guys are going to get huge, which means you're going to steal them, which is why this is a very significant factor, and we are not going to be able to win this. Because we probably... Yeah, okay, well... Are you about to lock this? Because otherwise that was potentially a humongous misplay. Or you're going to do some nifty double Master Puppets plays that are going to get really confusing, and I can't predict how exactly this is going to end up playing out. Well, anyways, the reason why they shouldn't have done that, in theory, was because we are going to get this cooldown in time to steal this back. But then they're going to, you know, steal the card that we stole or something like... It's going to get confusing really quick. I'm already confused. But, so now, when we can, reactivate this and then boost you up again. But that's not... It is something that's going to be very susceptible to this Master Puppet stealing it. Which is, again, why this was a big play. This was a big play. And we will deliberately withhold this order ability because we have more than enough vitality at the moment, and by not activating that ability, it means you're still getting boosted as well. So we only have one more play left. Ah, yeah, that's it. So you steal this Master Puppets with this Master Puppets. So now you will be able to steal one more card. We will not. So yeah, we're... As we were saying, just about everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. But now we go and we boost you. You're potentially going to get destroyed by poison on the last turn. Would have had additional boosted cards in this row had they not stolen this Meditating Mage, but So here the thing is, I mean, even with these Scythemen, I still don't think it's enough. Yeah, it's still not enough. We had, you know, minus 12 points for them and plus 12 points for us, then we would have, but that's why the Masters of Puppets was a significant play for them to break those guys out. And it's why this deck is actually looking to play big time in round 2 and not really in round 3. What's up, Cheyenne? How's it going? How are you? Yeah, that's just not a really how round 2 was the key there. We needed to we should not have passed so early in round 1. And tried to encourage a longer round 2, because then rather than just trying to pure outscore them in round 3, we could get a whole bunch of carryover with our meditating mages, and that's how we win. Not like what we just saw. Don't do it that way. But alas, as I was saying, we have deck guide videos for this deck, the deck we used previously, and for the monsters deck that I alluded to, but we did not use, and I don't think we're gonna have time to use this one today, and I don't think we're gonna have time to replay that Northern Realms deck because we have a bunch of other stuff we are still trying to squeeze in. But let's see if I can find this deck. I can at least skim through it. Here. Yes, this was the other deck that we would potentially have done, and this is the really just pure Nilfgaard counter. So this one probably would have done better, would have done way better against the opponent that we just faced. So probably the most consistent, I suppose, is the monsters deck. But as I said, I have had a fair bit of luck with the Northern Realms and the Scoia'tael decks as of late, even though usually I think of monsters as the go-to in the Banished event. But of course, new seasonal events every week with new rule sets. In fact, there are actually a couple of brand new seasonal events that we've never had before, don't even know what the rule sets are yet, that are coming out in a couple of weeks. So very much looking forward to that. And if you guys are interested in that type of stuff too, then of course you can stick around for deck guide videos for that type of thing. But, as I said, yeah, played more than 1K hours in this game. Same, man, same. And probably that much time editing Gwent videos as well. But, let's take a look at, oh no, not that, at this. Because we still have a bunch of stuff that we're looking to do here, because today, the idea of this stream is we're trying to go through and take a look at all the big games that we've played on YouTube and celebrate reaching 1,000 subs and saying, hey, okay, well, this is what got here to this point. So Gwent, of course, was a card, and we're doing this in chronological order of when we started playing the game. So, of course, Gwent, we started playing a while ago, but to this day, we are still very much playing. So, let's check out Mardek next, which is, well, a game that I am very fond of. In fact, is actually tied for my favorite game ever. For those of you who are like, oh, Lids, you play all this Gwent and Witcher stuff, surely it's your favorite game, right? No, actually, it is not. I mean, don't get me wrong, I do like it, but actually, my favorite is a tie between what we're about to play here and what we have coming up next on the list. So, this is Mardek, which is an indie game that I imagine many of you have probably never heard of before. It is originally a Flash game that I had played on Congregate, and I think even before that on Crazy Monkey Games. Now, I'm probably dating myself, but nowadays, it recently, about a year ago, I think, got released on Steam, and this is my favorite game ever, or at least tied for my favorite game ever. It is a game that once upon a time I had all the high scores for, but much time has passed since then, because actually the game originally, when it was on all of the online Flash game platforms, came out something like, I think it was 2008? So yeah, like 14-ish years ago, but only recently came out on Steam. So I think got a little bit of a research, a little bit of a revitalization, and for me I was really happy to take another look at it. It is a little bit loud, so I might see think we might have to load up the game to lower it. But let's so let me talk a little bit about what it is first, I suppose. So it is an RPG game, a story-based RPG game, in some ways kind of similar to The Witcher, I suppose. It's just that it's an indie game. It is an 8-bit game. It is made by one person when it comes to the programming, the gameplay, even the music, all one person, the art, which is pretty amazing. And it is, I would say, overall, much, much lighter in tone than pretty much any of the other RPG games that we played on this channel. But it doesn't take itself too seriously. It's quite silly in that way, while still at the same time having some really nice gameplay and still having some important aspects to the story that I think are, you know, not to be belittled by the lighter tone. So, what's up, Pixelberry? How are you? Let's hop in. We are just taking a look at Mardek here, and I think what we'll do is, well, I was hoping that we might have been able to, jump into, because, as I was just saying, it's a story-based RPG, it is kind of like The Witcher in that it's hard to jump into one specific spot, and it's not a super obvious starting or stopping point for us for just a short little look here, but I was thinking that we might just try to do something that is a little bit more standalone, and in fact, is perhaps just like what we did for The Witcher for that same reason, and do what is an arena mode, which is basically a very late endish game piece of content in it, which is much like the Witcher 2 arena mode that we did, pretty much pure combat, but it's either that or we could try to track down a specific interesting mission or location. There are some of those, but that's not going to be as much of a... not going to be as self-standing, I don't think. Recommended play Hades as well? Yes! So, Hades we played as the second game ever on this YouTube channel, so we were just playing it earlier today. I'm definitely a fan of that as well. But, let's go into the arena. I think it's the most straightforward thing for us to do here. I hesitate a little bit because it's not going to show off everything that Mardek has to offer, so I feel like, you know, not giving you the full picture of everything, but maybe we still go that route. So there are, technically there are multiple kinds of arena matches. There's a full group arena, and then there are arena rounds for the individual characters. The individual character ones are probably a little bit shorter. You want to do one of those? Maybe so. Tell you what, I changed my mind. We're gonna do... we're just gonna hop into a random spot. And by random spot, I mean actually my favorite spot in the game. That is not necessarily a full-blown mission, but it's just a location. So, as I said, it is an 8-bit game, so the graphics look like this. In combat, it actually is a little more detailed than this, but all made by one person. Art, gameplay, coding, music, everything. It's an RPG, and so if we open up our menu here, we can see the people that we have in our party, much like many other party-based RPGs. And so we have the main character here, Mardek, who is basically a royal guard slash soldier slash knight. I guess I should mention, there's Mardek 1, 2, and 3. It's a trilogy. It technically was supposed to eventually be, I believe, an 8-part series, but unfortunately, the developer was unable to go any further than part 3. And so we are in Mardek 3 at the moment, and so obviously that means we're a fair ways into the game, and our characters are fairly leveled up. Mardek here, we can see, is the main character, Royal Knight. As you can see, we have some squad mates with us, and we can actually switch out our squad mates if we'd like. We have Gloria, who's a shaman spellcaster person, Solar, who is basically a magic space dog, and Elwian, who is a support character who sings songs. Basically, she's a bard, except it's more complicated than that, but we'll leave it at that. So, we have, let me give you a closer look at what we have here. So each character has a set of active skills, and it is a turn-based RPG, I should mention. Kind of similar to the early Final Fantasy games, I think. There's a lot of inspiration from those. we have active abilities that we use on our turn that we can select, and then we also have reactions we can use. And so that is the sort of interesting gameplay mechanic that this game has that makes it different than many other turn-based RPGs, which can sometimes feel like, you know, you've seen one, you've seen them all. In this case, what happens is when we are in a battle, when we're about to attack someone, if we time our reaction correctly, and you'll see this little bar going across the bottom of the screen when we do so, then we get these bonuses in terms of extra damage or extra damage against specific enemies. Again, we're very late off in the game here, and so in this case we have a ton of abilities that we have, and so it's a pretty significant factor if we're hitting our offensive reactions, or in this case, defensive reactions. Again, we either have, we're getting collectively minus 60% damage, and then a flat minus 40 damage as well. Resistance to different elements, because there are elements in the game. There's a lot of layers to it because it is, of course, an RPG, so there are a lot of aspects to consider. Players that have stats, these are their resistances to the various elements, resistances to specific statuses, and experience. But that's the basic overview of all the stuff here. We are currently in the Miasma Citadel, which is actually a secret bonus area that is something that you only encounter late off in the game. Actually, do we have... Okay. If we go through this portal, it will take us into the area, and we will run into our first battle here. And so here, we have a better look at the combat screen, the combat area. And so whenever we go into a combat, we will have all of our characters showing up on the right side and all of our enemies showing up on the left side. Again, turn-based RPG means it's based on whatever our character's agility is. That will dictate who ends up going first here. So Eloian, our support character, has 27 agility, 19 for Solar, our space magic dog, 11 for Gloria, our shaman, and our main character Mardek has just 10. And if you actually look at up here, it'll show you the turn order, and so Eloian, Solar, these are the enemies, and then Gloria, Mardek actually has a item equipped that has him go twice. This yellow fairy gives him haste, so he goes twice. So we'll just show you what these skills are like and what combat is like. So Eloian, as I said, is our support character. We can either just do a basic attack with her, but it actually is not very strong because she is primarily here to power people up. So what we can do is play a series of songs that will either power us up or weaken our opponents, or in some cases, deal some passive damage. So maybe for simplicity's sake here, why don't we do a song that will damage our opponents when they take their turn? So that's what she does, and at the moment, we're not going to see the effect because it is oftentimes a passive effect, or in this case, we'll see it activate when our opponents take their turns. But now we have Solar, and so Solar is a bit of a hybrid character between magic abilities and physical attacks. But if we look at Solar's astral magic, there are some pretty cool things we can do here. Like, for example, astral form shifts the body to a different level of existence where it becomes ethereal. Non-elemental damage is nullified, other elemental damage is absorbed as HP, and natural elements do only half damage. So, talking a little bit about the elements that we spoke briefly about before. Fire, water, air, earth, light, dark, ether, which is basically like spirits, fig, which is basically the element of the mind. This is physical, and this is thalma, which is basically like just pure magic. And so here we see these spirit dudes, these apparitions, have resistance to various elemental damage, no resistance to light or dark damage, but they heal from taking spirit damage, ether damage, and are very weak to this fig mind damage, and completely resistant to physical damage. So, since they are spirits and they are ether elemental, as we can see here, if we were to, say, transform into a spirit ourselves, then, you know, that might be an interesting way to go about doing things. Now, here they are taking their turn. You see this bar at the bottom of the screen? That is the reaction bar. So that is the place where we were talking about before. If we hit that reaction properly, then we get additional defenses, or if we're attacking, we get additional offense. So I actually missed it on Solar's turn. But Solar has transformed into a spirit. And now that has affected Solar's resistances here, such that Solar heals 200% from taking spirit damage, so that is perhaps a nifty thing for us to use here. Now, I don't actually think this is going to be a difficult encounter for us once we actually try to attack these enemies. We see they have 50% resistance to a whole bunch of elements, and basically Gloria's thing is that she has a bunch of spells that deal damage of a specific element, depending on which one you'd like to use here. Some other minor effects as well, but why don't we just go for, say, a little bit of Razor Leaf Pokemon style. We can either target one enemy and deal extra damage to that one enemy, or split that spell across numerous enemies, and it reduces the damage a little bit, but we'll give this a shot. Try to hit our reaction, giving us a little bit more damage, and dropping those enemies down quite low. Now it's Mardek's turn. He is the main character, and so he has a bunch of healing support magic. Somewhat surprising in that the main character is primarily more of a support character, although he does also have some elemental-based attacks as well. His base attack is actually going to be a physical attack with his sword, of course, and he is currently equipping a sword, Champion Sword 2, which is a very late-game item, which gives him light elemental attacks, and because these guys are, well, they don't have any resistance to light elemental, that could be worth considering. They do, however, if we're looking here, have 0 magic defense, but 30 physical defense. I mean, they are ghosts, basically, that we're trying to attack with sword, but, you know, maybe we'll try. Maybe we'll see if we can swipe at a ghost, and yes, we have enough damage to do that. So Mardek, as we were saying before, has a haste item that gives him the ability to go twice in a row here, so we can take out another apparition, perhaps. Try to hit our reaction. I missed it, but still enough damage to take it out. Now it is Eloine's turn again. We have looped back around to the start of the route, and so, I mean, we can either opt to continue playing the same song, or we can switch it up to a different one if we'd like. This was the one that's dealing a little bit of damage every time our opponent takes a turn, and you know what? With our opponent at just 56 HP, perhaps that's all we need here. And, I mean, we could try going with a different, more offensive spell from Solar here. Maybe how about a Solar Flare to try to blast them with some light damage of the spell variety. And so, obviously, that is what a battle looks like. I took a fair bit of time there to just go over some of the basics, but that is the general idea behind it. And of course, when you're just going through, you'd usually go a lot faster than that. But I've played a lot of this game, so as you can see, we got, 2,500 or so gold, and we have 4.1 million gold, but pay no mind to that. So we can, of course, explore various areas. There are many, many areas. Actually, quite a long game, and especially if you're considering Mardek 1, 2, and 3. And in those areas, we'll encounter a wide variety of enemies, so maybe we'll go a little bit further here and just see what type of other encounters we can find ourselves getting into. Like these Skelezards are dark, undead lizards, which are similarly quite weak to light attacks, so maybe we'll speed through here a little bit more. And actually, if I remember correctly, yes, Eloine has a spell that is specifically deals a ton of damage to undead enemies, so might as well go for that one. Again, it'll activate when our opponents take their turn, and since they're weak to light, then maybe we use a Solar Flare to take one of these guys out. We see that this one has a little bit more HP, it's a higher level than the other one, so maybe we go after you, and it is enough damage. That's good stuff. And that is the damage from Eloine's ability right there, and it's enough to take that car out. So, there's one particular enemy that I would like to see if we can encounter. It is a random enemy. There is a very major boss battle in this area, which I am not sure, given how we just loaded a random save, if we have encountered it yet or not. It would take a while to do, I think, so I probably would not pursue it that much, but there is a random enemy that I'd like for us to see. So what I might do here is, I might flee from some battles until we find that specific enemy, because it's kind of cool. And, okay. Maybe, is the big boss enemy here accessible? Or am I looking in the wrong place? Is it actually, oh wait, hold on. I mean, it is a big black eyeball, true. I suppose it's the first time we've seen this enemy. We could give it a shot here. Let's go Requiem, which is the one that deals damage to the undead enemies. So that should take care of the Skelezards. Then we have this big black eye, and it has a lot of HP. So it's going to be a little bit hard to take this out. It heals to dark, and it heals to several of the more fire and water elements, but it is quite weak to, especially light, but air and earth as well. So, if we are to, say, use a light spell on it, like this Solar Flare again, that could be a way to deal a decent chunk of damage, but not that much. Eloian does have sufficient damage to take out the Skelezards, but this guy has 0 physical defense, but 30 magic defense, which is a large reason why Solar's spell did not do much damage to this guy, and that also means that trying to attack him with a spell from Gloria, even though she is primarily a spell-based character, probably not going to be the best option for us. It is weakest to earth and air when it comes to the things that Gloria can do here, because she is not as capable of mixing up her physical attacks, but let's try going with an earth attack here. Her base attack is earth elemental, which I missed the reaction on, but was still half decent damage. Now, Mardek, however, does have a light physical attack. Light elemental, that is. So I think that base attack is probably where we want to go here. Because these elemental slashes, yes, we could go for one that it is a little bit weak to, but it's just not going to be as effective, because that's 50% weakness versus 100% weakness if we're going for light. And that, with the crit, is definitely enough. Oh, thanks for stopping by, yeah. No worries, no worries. Here we're getting some items from this encounter as well. There's still one particular enemy that I'd like for us to check out. Oh, and actually, might even have one squad mate that I'd like for us to use as well that I think is particularly cool. So I might just see, I'm gonna skip this one. I'm gonna pick up that other squad mate who I would like to show. And then I'm gonna see if we can get that one specific random encounter. So I think that'll be a fun enemy for us to show here. So let's go to the save crystal where we heal, can save, and can switch party members and or access item storage, which is just a whole bunch of stuff that I picked up over the course of the run. But let us swap out some party members here. Why don't we get rid of, take your pick, and I want to introduce Zach in particular, I think is really cool. You know what? We'll swap everyone out. We'll add Zach is a mercenary who is very combat, physical attack oriented. We have Slinik, who is a lizard man. And why don't we go with Legion, who is a spirit-possessed robot that we created, an automaton, if you will. And so if we take a quick look at our party members now, we see, just get another close-up, Slinik, Legion, and Zach. And we'll see them more closely in combat, of course, as well. So, Zach will be our primary physical attacker. Slinik is a little bit of a hybrid between physical and magic attacks, and Legion, a bit of a hybrid as well. Still haven't found the specific enemy that I'm looking for here. Zach uses a double, what is technically the name, not double staff, but what is the official name that they use for it? It's really cool. Oh, also I've taken off all of his gear for some reason. A double sword is what they're referring to it as. Whereas Slinik is using a great axe, and Legion uses a buzzsaw / robot arm of some variety. So yeah, I don't currently have everyone fully geared up, but that is, of course, another aspect of it, is getting powerful gear on your characters, but I think we'd still be fine. I mean, yes, this is technically an end game area, but, you know, maybe that'll come back to bite us, especially against this one enemy that I'm trying to see if we can encounter here, but I'm subject a bit to RMG. That's not it. Okay, we'll see. I mean, if we can't find it, then so be it. I'll try. There is a different area in this dungeon of sorts. Different side we can go to, but perhaps this will be who we're looking for. It is not. We've seen the Skelezards. So, of course, there are different combinations of enemies and different numbers of enemies you can have in an encounter as well. Like, you can get 2 Skelezards, 3 Skelezards, 4 Skelezards, combination of Skelezards, and that... Oh, okay, so yeah, we have not been to this side yet. I mean, I have, because we've finished this game in YouTube, or on YouTube in our playthrough. But this is a little way to open up a gate on the other side, which is something that we ran into before. We've seen these apparitions. And that is actually the way you would access the big boss. Treasure chests with more loot. Ah, that's locked as well. Okay, so yeah, again, this is largely just a matter of, I wasn't entirely sure how much we had done in this dungeon, given how we just kind of randomly selected a save to pick up here. But I figured that the dungeon was done. It actually is not, because we have not unlocked all those doors. But now, having unlocked that one, I think we go back over here. It's a different spot that'll be open now. And that means we can unlock a different door. Will get us through to a different spot, and it's a little bit of, you know, going back and forth, sort of, I mean, I hesitate to say Metroidvania style, but... Now, yeah, so previously, both of these spots were blocked up by a barrier, but now this one is open, so we can go through here, and this actually may, at some point, guarantee we can get the encounter that I'm looking for. Which is another reason why I'm proceeding further. That's the other switch, the blue one, which was blocking us on the other side. So there are many dungeons in this game, many different areas with different types of enemies. This is just one area that, of course, has a specific variety of typically undead or ghostly monsters, but you'll find other beasts and humans and what have you at different points of the game. This is what I've been looking for. This is what I've been looking for. A big old golem for us to fight. Okay, so this guy is interesting because it is basically a mini boss. It has high strength, which means its physical attacks hit quite hard. A lot of HP, a whole lot of HP, and not much in the way of spirit, which dictates how much damage it does with spells, and it is slow, that agility. Attack, the other thing dictates how much damage it does with physical attack, very high. Physical defense, very high as well, 40. 0 magic defense. Lots of resistances to everything but air, and Ether, the spirit element, and Fig, the mind element, completely resistant to physical attacks. So, a little bit tricky to find a way to break through this guy's defenses, and we know that if it does hit us, it's gonna hit us hard. But this is one of the reasons why I wanted to switch up our team as well, because we have Zack here, and Zack has a normal attack, and he has his cool yin and yang double sword, which does have a lot of base attack, and his starting strength is not bad. He's also quite fast, which is why he's going first, but he has some very interesting techniques as well, his special skills. So he can use Berserk to just deal double damage with his normal ability, but then he goes crazy and can only use default attacks. Has basically a lot of skills that are situational. They are either, you know, very limited additional damage, or when used the right way, suddenly much more effective. And in particular, I want to show off Sin Strike. Inflict damage based on the number of foes that Zack has slain. So, if you're like me, and you're crazy, and you grind a bazillion battles in this game, and you've killed a bunch of enemies in this game with Zack, then abilities like Sin Strike can deal absurd damage against enemies that, mind you, resisted 50% of that hit, and we still dealt 5,000 damage. So if not for its resistance, we would have just dealt over 9,999. Technically, 9,999 is the damage cap. But yeah, so basically, when you kill a bunch of people with Zack, you can hit the damage cap, which is kind of cool. Now we have Mardek. Yeah, our group here is kind of slow, so Mardek is coming up next. We have, of course, already seen Mardek do his thing. We could hit this golem here with a physical attack from Mardek, but actually, air is the thing that he's weakest to. So what if we use one of Mardek's magic sword air slash abilities here? Which should hit a little bit harder. And then Legion. I'd like to still get a chance to show you the other people's here as well. Legion is a robot who his gimmick is that basically he learns abilities from your enemies. And so when he gets attacked by certain predetermined skills, he gains the ability to use them, which is pretty interesting because it means that there are some skills that your enemies use that are quite powerful that suddenly you can then turn right around and use them against your opponents. So he has many options available to him here. And there are definitely some that would be very useful on this occasion. On the other hand, I don't really want to kill this golem right now because I would like to get the chance to show you Slinik as well, our last remaining party member. So what if we instead... Is this going to be enough to kill you? It might be. I'm going to deliberately use an ability that it's going to resist a little bit. It has 0 magic defense, so we might still hit it hard, but I'm going to go for either a fire, water, or earth ability here. Let's go with Earthquake. I'm hoping this is not enough to kill you. But we shall see. Okay, it's not. So now we have Slinik. And Slinik is also a bit of a hybrid character between physical attacks and some magic. Because, well, Slinik is basically a lizard warrior dude with a lot of base strength and a actually, technically, the highest base power weapon in the game with this Dracal Crescent. So we could just whack this guy with our axe and do a lot of damage that way, but we also can breathe fire, which is pretty cool too. So those are our options here. We might just go for a basic attack because, well, what's your fire resistance again? It is 50%. Okay. So maybe we go for that. Perforates lowers its armor, which is kind of nifty in a long battle. The problem is that it is physical elemental, and this guy resists 100% of physical damage, so we would deal quite literally 0 damage. We'd weaken him, powering up our future attacks, but just not sure that's all that meaningful. Earth Slash, just an earth elemental attack, when otherwise our base attack is fire elemental. Oh, unless technically we have a reaction ability that is changing it over back to earth. So, I mean, it didn't make a huge difference either way because you're resisting 50% of that damage. And the reason why that didn't do much is a combination of that 50% resistance and that 40 defense as well. And so that just further reinforces how freaking powerful Zack was with that 5,000 damage with 1 hit. We have Mardek again here. Again, he can go twice because he has that item that's giving him haste. So we could once again go for the air slash here, which should be enough to take this guy out, or we could deliberately just hit you with a normal attack, which might not be enough, and potentially let this golem show us how hard it can hit us. So yeah, tell you what, we'll put regen on somebody, which obviously means that they will heal at the start of their next turn. It's not really necessary when they're currently at full HP, but just doing it deliberately to let the golem one-shot Zack. Admittedly, I missed the reaction, but so we would have reduced some of the damage if I had actually hit it. But yeah, that's how hard the golem hits. So yes, our characters are very strong, very capable of dealing a lot of damage, but just to show you how significant this enemy would normally be if you did not have as strong a character, or if you miss your reactions and in general just let them hit you before you take them out. But there we go. We'll get rid of the golem. And that's actually a pretty rare item that you can only get from either chests or this specific type of golem enemy. And so obviously if your entire party gets killed in a battle, but it's game over and Zack went down in that fight, now he starts with 1 HP for any remaining battles unless we were to go back to that healing crystal, which we may opt to do here, because I just wanted to show you some of the, dungeon-y stuff. Again, this is just one little aspect of this game, because it is a full-blown campaign, and a game that we have finished the campaign on, Mardek 1, 2, and 3. Hold on, just go back to the save crystal real quick. And so, yes, there are dungeons like this, there are battles like this, there are bosses. We fought a mini-boss sort of with that golem, but there is a very, very powerful boss in this dungeon that we actually would have had to gone a little bit further to gain access to. But also, some interesting plot elements as well. I actually think that the story for the game is very interesting, and you couldn't really tell from what we did here, but actually, I'll tell you what. Maybe we can get a little bit of a chance to see the tone of the game a little bit more here. If I can remember what's the hotkey for it is, he proceeds to press every button on his keyboard to see what triggers it. I don't even know what it was, but apparently that was it. So we can chat with our squad mates here, and I almost forgot to mention. Yeah, Mardek, sure, he's a Royal Guard knight human dude, but he's also possessed by a spirit. And this is it. We travel to so many places that reek of death and despair. I do so wish I could cleanse and purify them with brilliant lights. Alas, my ability to do so was lost with my old form. Basically, a spirit, powerful, magic being crashed on this planet, died, and almost immediately afterward, Mardek and a friend of his stopped by to check it out, and that spirit, with its dying breath, rather than ceasing to exist, proceeded to possess Mardek and kind of, sort of control him from within Mardek's body, and in doing so, has given Mardek special healing abilities, and that's where many of the powers that we saw came from. And we can also talk to other squad mates as well. Ooh, okay. And sometimes it's just a comment about the current area in which you find yourself. Other times it's a more personal backstory on the character, which, sure, you know, that kind of thing exists in a lot of games, yes, but I think that it's actually very, very well done in this game is one of the things that helps the game really stand out. And again, having been made by just one person, all the more impressive for that reason. And this is probably my favorite song in the game, and I love it. And I'm also pretty sure that there's some other game that, oh no, I was gonna say, there's another game that sounds really similar to this song. It has a soundtrack that sounds really similar to this, and for a second I thought it might have been Gwent, but it wasn't. So I love that song. Love that song. And once you learn more about Zack, it is even more fitting as well. It's very dark, and his past is very mysterious, and he's been wronged in many ways. But basically, well, this song, which again was written by the developer when this game came out in about 2018, or rather 2008, very different, 2008 or so. Then Path of Exile, which is actually the first game that we ever played on Twitch on this channel, or I mean, I personally played on Twitch when we only were a Twitch channel and not a YouTube channel. We were previously exclusively Path of Exile for over a year, I think. And so years later, like a decade later, Path of Exile came out with a song that sounded really similar to this, like frighteningly similar to this, to the point where, well, once I was playing Path of Exile and got to that area that had this soundtrack in it, I was like, what? Excuse me? What is this all about? Where did that come from? And I mean, it is, again, as I said, my favorite song from this game, so it was a pleasant surprise, but at the same time was very, very weird. But anyway, so Zack is a very mysterious character with a haunting past, but he doesn't talk much at all. He likes to keep to himself. But if you push, eventually, once he levels up enough, you can potentially get him to open up here. So, tell you what, I don't know. I might deliberately not proceed further than this because, of course, as I said before, we played this game, the entire Mardek 1, 2, and 3, in a playlist on YouTube. It exists. You can check it out. If it sounds interesting, if it looks interesting, you can check the whole thing there. As I said, it is tied for my favorite game ever. I absolutely love it, and once upon a time, I was technically the high score holder for basically all the high scores in this game. So, it was really cool to, a decade plus later, take a look back at it and see, you know, what is it like now? And I will deliberately not show you the rest of this conversation because I feel like, you know, it's kind of like a whole bunch of spoilers if you are interested in this, so we'll hold off on that stuff. With that being said, I think this is probably a good place for us to finish up with Mardek for that reason. So, let us take a look here at our agenda, because we do still have more things we're looking to do, and not to mention, one of those things is my other favorite game, Mass Effect. Specifically, this is one of those instances where, much like with The Witcher, much like with Mardek, it is hard to break off what is a huge story RPG trilogy into little bite-sized piece for us to, you know, be able to start and finish in one sitting here. So I think for that reason, we'll do Mass Effect 3 multiplayer in particular which obviously is not a campaign, but much like we've done for things like The Witcher 2, is much easier for us to just get a little snapshot of what it's all about. So, for that reason, unfortunately, we will close out Mardek and cease to listen to that awesome music. But let us do Mass Effect 3 here, and I think this will probably also be the last game that we do tonight, because although I initially wanted to get through all these things, because these are all, at least the big games, the ones that we played multiple times and have playlists for on YouTube, I think that, unfortunately, well, as some of you guys probably know, I made a Gwent video that I was not originally planning to make earlier today, and it may have been about a 6-minute video. It took 6 or 7 hours to make that, so, and I was not initially planning to make that, so that kind of pushed back the start time of this stream significantly. So, given how there is a new seasonal event coming out tomorrow that I'm gonna have to wake up early to record and edit and upload before going to work, that is probably reason enough to not go too late here tonight. So this will probably be the last game that we do tonight. But I think this is a good one for us to finish on because it is my other favorite game, Mass Effect. Let me just switch our screens here. All right, so this is Mass Effect, which is my other favorite game ever. It is a huge sci-fi RPG, kind of similar to The Witcher. I kind of think of it as almost like The Witcher in space, or at least there are tons and tons of similarities to it. Similar tone, similar level of stakes, it feels like. And so in this case, we are, of course, in the future, and we are going to be, well, on YouTube, we had done Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3. It's a trilogy. And so it's a campaign, and we did a playthrough of all of those ones. Now, obviously, for today, I think it's not really feasible for us to start a trilogy by any means. There's no way we're finishing that, right? There was the original trilogy came out, I think, starting in 2011 was Mass Effect 1. But then this 1 year ago, Mass Effect Legendary Edition came out, which was a remastered, or technically, I forget, remastered, and what's the other very similar word that technically has a difference? Basically a remaster, or remake, is that what I'm thinking? It was a remaster for the most part of the original trilogy, and so the graphics got improved. Now this, technically, what we're doing here is the original Mass Effect 3, not the Legendary Edition version. We did the campaign for the Legendary Edition. We have that on YouTube in a playlist. If you're interested in checking that out, it's all there. But what we're doing here is Mass Effect 3 multiplayer, which unfortunately is only in the original Mass Effect 3, not in Legendary Edition. There was a lot of talk about, hey, maybe they'd add it to Legendary Edition, but they, for some reason, thought that, hey, maybe people wouldn't be interested in doing it. But this is much easier for us to just pick up and start and finish in one sitting. So what we're going to do here is we are going to be selecting a character, and we have 6 different classes to choose between. We have the Adept, which is basically the space magic class. We have the Soldier, who is basically the person who fires guns most effectively, although everyone has a gun. They're just the specialists at that. The Engineer, who has more tech-oriented skills, like making people get electrocuted or shooting fireballs at them. We have the Sentinel, which is the hybrid between that tech stuff and that space magic-y stuff. We have the Infiltrator, which is the hybrid between the gun stuff and the tech stuff. And we have the Vanguard, who is the hybrid between the gun stuff and the space magic-y stuff. So those are the categories, and then within each category, we have several different characters to choose between, some of whom are of the same species, but in some cases, they are these alien species that, if you've not played Mass Effect 4, you may not be all that familiar with, but they all have different skills, different strengths, different weaknesses, and so that is, in large part, what makes them so interesting to play. And so in Mass Effect 3 multiplayer in particular, we will choose one of these characters. We will be going into what is basically a horde mode, in which we will need to survive for 10 waves. Over the course of those waves, the enemies will get stronger. We will have some objectives that we need to complete at various intervals during those waves, and then at the very end, for wave 11, we will need to extract safely after our timer runs out. So that is the name of the game. That's what we'll be looking to do here. We either can play with one person or up to 4 people is the usual amount you would play with. So for this one, I mean, there's a bar here to scroll through. So we have a bunch of characters. I think it's about 11 per class. So around a total of, 60 plus. So lots and lots of options. As I said, each one is unique. But I think the most interesting might actually be the one that I started off with. It is the base human vanguard. So it's a character that you actually unlock initially. But what our deal is here is that we have the biotic charge ability, which basically has us almost teleport straight into an enemy, charge into them, deal damage, and that is a ton of fun. And then once we do that, we can then subsequently use Nova, which is like a slam, a ground pound that makes a little circle around us of energy that blasts out and deals a lot of damage as well. And technically, our charge gives us back our shields, which is one layer of defenses. We have shields, which is a layer of defense that kind of like a health bar that once it gets depleted, if we don't take damage for a certain amount of time, it will eventually regenerate. Then if we get our shields depleted and we continue to take damage, then eventually our health will deplete as well. And if our health drops down to 0, then obviously we die. So the good thing about charge is not only does it deal damage and get us straight into the thick of things, it also heals our shields. So it's a way defensively for us to benefit as well, although we're getting right into the thick of the action. So it's a very high-risk, high-reward playstyle, which is one of the reasons why I think it's going to be a lot of fun to show off here. And then Nova is kind of exactly the opposite. Once we are right in the middle of all the enemies, yes, we create this blast, this circle radius around us that will deal damage to enemies, but it actually gets rid of all of our shields. So it makes us much weaker, much more susceptible to getting taken out. So it's this constant balance of living on the edge, of charging into enemies, getting right up next to them, and restoring your defenses, then spending your defenses to deal more damage, then charging again to get them back, Novaing again to deal more damage, and losing them. And as you can see here from charge, we have a cooldown, so it's not like we can just instantaneously alternate between the two of them. So that's the plan there. And then other than that, our other abilities are passive abilities that give us more damage on those types of skills and more health. So then other than that, we have weapons to select, weapons to choose from. And so different categories of weapons. We have sniper rifles, but we are generally more of an up-close and personal style, so that's probably not the best fit for us. We have assault rifles, lots of options here. We could opt to go that route, but I think it's probably still not the most natural fit for us. We have SMGs, which, yes, tend to be more close range and very rapid fire, but in terms of pure damage are generally not the best fit, so we probably would pass on those as well. Shotguns, this is probably the most logical choice for us to take here, and might opt for this one, but plenty of options here as well. And then finally, there are pistols, which, although may not sound all that dramatic, there are actually some pretty amazing pistols in the game, so don't let their small stature fool you into thinking that they are weak. So we actually can take up to 2 different types of weapons. If we'd like to, we can take a shotgun plus something else, but I think we'll just stick to the shotgun here. And what happens is, the weapons have all these stats. Weight is basically something that dictates how quickly you'll be able to recharge your abilities. So if you have a really heavy weapon, like for example, this Claymore, you'll see our power recharge speed is just plus 61%. So still a benefit, we're still getting our cooldowns more quickly. But if we go to something that is much lighter, like say this Disciple, it's plus 160, so we're getting our abilities back much more quickly. So basically it's this balancing act of, if you want to be going all-out weapons damage, then you could take a really powerful heavy weapon, but you're not going to be able to use your abilities as frequently. Alternatively, if you want to be focusing on your powers, then you take either fewer weapons, take just 1 rather than 2, or take a lighter weapon that might not have as much damage, but hey, you're at least going to be able to spam your abilities more regularly. So I think what we're going to do here is we're going to go with, where was it? The Geth Plasma Shotgun. It's sort of middleweight. Capacity, just how many shots it can fire before it needs to reload. Fire rate, how quickly it fires. Damage, very high. Accuracy, this was a little deceptive. These bars are not always the most accurate. But accuracy, obviously, is how accurate it is. The way this works is that it charges up a blast, and then once we release the shot, obviously we fire. The longer we charge, the more damage we get. But there is a limit to how much damage it can deal. So I like this weapon with this character in particular because if you charge it up in advance of your charge, then you charge, you have basically just a shot that you're waiting to discharge at your opponent. And if you charge, not only are you hitting them with your space magic charge straight into them, you're also going to trigger pull the trigger on your weapon simultaneously. So you're just getting 2 hits right off the bat, which are pretty nice. Pretty nice to have. And we also have options to modify the weapons even further, doing things like giving them more capacity, making it so that they can penetrate some armor and cover, giving us extra melee damage, giving us just pure damage, giving us additional accuracy, giving us even more melee damage, though in this case, it's better for the damage, but it adds weight to the weapon. So there's that downside of slower cooldowns. Even more armor piercing and cover penetration, but in this case, once again, increases the weapon weight, so worse cooldowns, or reduce the weight of the weapon so you can get faster cooldowns. So in this case, this is actually a little bit of an unusual weapon in that it is not capable of piercing any armor or anything like that, so we're just going to go pure damage and keep it light so we can spam our charge as much as possible. So that's the plan there. So that's our weapon, our character, and our skills. We do have some other gear we can equip here. And this is a spot where we can just get an upgrade that is permanent, does not expire from one match to the next. And so biotic powers, that's the space magic. So we could just go all out on maximizing the damage there, get an extra 15%. Then here we can upgrade our weapon damage, and which one we want to select depends on what type of weapon we're using. In this case, we obviously just talked about all these types of weapons before, but we are using a shotgun. So let's take the Shotgun Ray Lamp 3. These ones are consumables. They do run out after you use one of them, so you need to be a little more mindful of that, but we have plenty there, so it should be fine. Then same can be said with all the other categories are consumables. They will go away. That's why you see the numbers there for them. But now this is our armor bonus, which is more of a defensive upgrade of some variety, so we can just add to our shield count, make us tankier, which is not a bad idea for this character. Things like that can make our weapon more stable. That is actually more offensive. Yeah, I suppose not all these are defensive. But power efficiency means we get our abilities off cooldown more quickly. Power amplifier means our abilities, our powers, hit harder. The shields we were just talking about, or run faster. So usually the shields are the way to go here on this character. And as I was saying, well, this is the ammo that we're using for our weapon. And so we can do things like pierce through armor and cover, freeze our enemies and weaken their armor, disrupt their shields for extra damage and prevent them from recharging and potentially stun them even more cover penetration, explode our ammo, which, although sounds amazing, is actually the worst ammo in the game, set our enemies on fire, a different way to break through our enemy's shields, or have an ammo type that is space magic-y and benefits from dealing more damage when we are already using space magic. And we are using space magic, so that's not a terrible option. But actually, I think we might go the fire route here. Either the fire route or even the stun slash shield disrupting option. So let's go for this. And so now we've set everything up. We can see, here's our character. Here's a quick look at our abilities. We had the option of taking Shockwave as one of our powers, but we have a limited number of powers based on our level. This is, of course, an RPG. And so opted not to take Shockwave. I generally think it is not the best fit for this character specifically. So we realistically only have these two, and then obviously our gun, which is, as we were saying, something that we will charge up to deal extra damage. Then we have our equipment, extra space magic damage, extra shotgun damage, extra shields, and stunning / eating through our enemy shields more quickly. So we are all set up and ready to go. So what we could do is jump into an existing match here and can look for a specific map if we would like, or we can just keep it random. We can look for a specific enemy if we'd like, or we can keep it random. There are basically the evil humans, the evil robots, the evil space monsters, and the other evil space monsters. So I think we'll just keep it with anything for all these so that we are most likely to just find a random public match that we can jump into. And there are multiple difficulties. There's do any here. There's bronze, which is the lowest, silver, gold, which is usually what I play on, and then there's platinum, which is the highest. And although I have done platinum and can do platinum, it's generally, a lot more try-hardy and sweaty and what have you. So, in the interest of just keeping it a little lighter here, we'll probably go with the gold. So, and especially if you're going to random public lobby and you're expecting to have, remember, 3 other people on your team with you of a random variety, going into a random public platinum match when you don't know who you're going with is sometimes a bit of a scary prospect, because you don't really want to have to carry an entire team on the highest difficulty. So, all right, let's jump in though. We could also make a lobby of our own, but obviously I've not been courting with other people to do that. So we'll see. There's a chance we're going to get thrown straight into the middle of a game immediately. There's a chance that game is partway through, but we'll see when we get there. So for Mass Effect, we played the campaign, Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3 on Legendary Edition. Okay, we are going straight into a match here. It is Wave 1, so it is the beginning. I'm going to check to see if I know any of these people. I do not. Okay, so there's 2 other people in this group with us. So they are our teammates, and we are fighting Cerberus, which is the bad, evil human people. So again, our thing is that we are going to charge into people once we find a single enemy, that is. And we can also power up our weapon, and so that's how long it takes to charge up. It's not that long, but it's certainly not instantaneous either. Okay, so they finished up this wave, but should start the next wave shortly. So yes, we've played the campaign, Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3. Here are the enemies. That's our charge. That's our Nova. That's another charge. Here's another Nova. Now this guy is actually going to be a problem. This guy has a shield, which defies all logic, because that shield blocks all space magic, which is not good for us, because we like the space magic, and this is another one of them. So you can try to shoot them, yeah, in between the little gap in their shield, which you can kind of see now that he's dropped it. There's a little gap there. Still possible to hit him that way, but it is, oh, hello. It's a little bit difficult to do that, and if we try to charge him or Nova him, it just would do nothing. Still get our shields back from the charge, but it would, oh, okay, that's a grenade that's gonna hit us. And we got, oh, one more person. One more teammate to join us here. Oh, also, I should have given this more thought, but this character, notably, is the worst character to play, or one of the worst classes to play off host. We are joining another person's existing public lobby. We are not hosting this match because it is the most subject to lag, because we want to try to charge people as quickly as possible, but we sometimes might run into some issues if we are experiencing lag. So this is our first objective wave, and there are a series of different types of objectives that we can do. They are randomly selected, randomly assigned. This time we have 4 of these devices that we need to activate. They're going to be spread out across the map. We activate them individually. Takes a few seconds to activate them. If you get hit while you're trying to do that, then that can disrupt you, like that guy just tried to charge, but yeah, it was a little bit laggy, so it did not let me lock onto him, which was a little bit problematic. So, like, we want to make sure that our teammates are able to get to these devices, have enough time to charge them up. That is the strongest enemy, technically, kind of, sort of, but sort of the second strongest enemy of this group. The big robots. those guys, the Dragoons, it's our first time seeing them as well. They are strong at close range as well. I want to try to protect this guy, so he has enough ability, enough time and space and safety to activate that device. So these enemies are pretty straightforward for the most part. They're the basic assault troopers that we've seen a few times. They're your typical soldier that shoots weapons and occasionally throws grenades at you. The Atlases, as I said, those are the big mechs, the big tanks that fire missiles at you that obviously hurt. They actually can instantly kill you if you get too close to them as well, so especially since we charge into enemies, need to be really careful of that. There's one of the missiles. Okay, our friends have finished the objective. I'm gonna deliberately see if this guy's gonna try to instantly kill us. Or fire a missile at us instead, from point blank. So those guys, these nemesis are sniper users. And they love to try to run away from you at the end of the wave and hide in a corner where it can be annoying to try to track them down because they just keep on running. And these are the Dragoons, and now the Engineer we are seeing for the first time. Oh, and Phantom. And Phantom. Okay, so Phantom we have seen for the first time. We killed it before it could do anything, but it is actually the most difficult enemy of this group. It doesn't look like it. There's one of them. Doesn't look like it, because it looks like just a basic human compared to the big mech that we saw before, but it is actually more dangerous because it is one of the enemies that can instantly kill you from point blank range if you let it, because it has a big sword. Also, they just created a turret here. That's what the Engineers do, and those, ow. I'd like to charge on these people to get our shields back. So the turrets, the Engineers set them up. If you leave the Engineers alone for too long, they will set up the turrets and they deal boatloads of damage. So you just want to get rid of the Engineers before they get the chance to do that. It's the Atlas that I didn't really want to focus on. I'm trying to focus on you. There's one of the Engineers. So the Engineers, they can either repair an Atlas. The Atlas has taken damage. Or they can set up the turrets. So in general, like I said, you want to get rid of the Engineers quickly so they don't do that. Ow. We're getting hit by another, we are getting hit by another Atlas. So we just lost all of our HP. We died. We can technically either use a Metagel, which is a consumable, to revive ourselves, or our teammates can revive us like that if they get over to us. It takes a few seconds for them to do so. It's not the absolute end of the world, but it can become a problem, especially if your other teammates are down. That's a basic trooper. There is a turret out here, and an Atlas. Okay, so there's a, oh, that's a turret. Let's see if we can finish off this Atlas. Okay, the Atlas is dead. Looks like one of our teammates got our friend. This turret is going to be a problem, though. Unless, okay, good. It doesn't have a lot of HP, but its DPS is just humongous. So again, the Atlas, technically speaking, is supposed to be the biggest enemy. It is capable of insta-killing you, but it doesn't do it very often, and it's very predictable with it. Whereas the Phantom, the little sword lady, is much sneakier because she has a cloak and can go invisible, and she's just much quicker with her insta-kill. So this is another objective. This time it's a different one. It is this little drone that we need to stand close to in order to escort it to our destination. That is a Phantom. You can see her sword, and that's her cloak, but we blasted her to smithereens. So by standing in this circle, we are propelling the drone further to the objective, but we go faster if we have all of our teammates here, so we'd like to have teammates join us. Oh, that's a turret right around the corner, which is not a good thing. I also forgot to pick up ammo. We do have a consumable we can use actually to restore ammo, so I will do that. We also have consumables for restoring our HP preemptively. Even if we haven't gone down yet, we can heal ourselves. There's that one that revives us if we've gone down entirely. And then we also have, well, something else, which I will perhaps break out after this. Okay, so objective done.